Well, welcome to this ordinary meeting of Council. Unless something unforeseen happens, this will be our second last meeting. So welcome Councillors, I notice everybody's present, and welcome Directors and General Manager. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're on here today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. Declaration of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. As I stated, everybody is present, so there's no apologies. Declarations of interest, Councillors. No declarations of interest. Confirmation of minutes. Somebody like to move?
Happy.
Moved Councillor Goodsall, seconded Councillor Goodwin. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Commemorations and announcements.
Mayor Thompson, I do have some commemorations and announcements. I'd just like to congratulate Jonathan Edgecombe and the council staff and all involved with the terrific effort in preparing and executing the recent vaccination clinic in Lithgow. Many favourable comments from residents I have heard in our local government area with 1,631 people vaccinated, so well done for a very worthy cause. And some exciting news for the Clarence-Dargan area today. Ray Crescent and Petro Avenue, which have been in dire straits situations after the 1920 bushfires, they've been allowed a funding allowance.
Mayor, point of order again. We've had this debate continually about commemorations and announcements. Had no problem with the first one, but this isn't about what government may or may not do, about what someone may or may not do about roads.
I uphold that point of order too, Councillor McAndrew. If you could keep it to commemorations and announcements, please, Councillor Statham.
So you don't think the people at Clarence and Dargan would be delighted to know that some of the roads since the fire that they can't use would be happy now to know they're going to get funding to use that?
Once again, point of order, Mayor.
No worries at all. No worries, Councillor McAndrew.
No, I'm not going to have Councillor Statham continue to do this continually every meeting. That'll be made where through a proper process, not through this process.
I've upheld the point of order. Councillor Statham, if you've got anything else in commemorations and announcements.
I do have, thank you. Many
you.
local residents, particularly Cullumball and Oban and Portland, are mourning the unexpected, devastating death of a much-awaited 4-year-old baby boy, Ace. I'm sure that all councillors would even acknowledge this is a disaster and a tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers will go out to both families, the Banks family and the other family.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Any other? Look, I have one myself. The passing of Murray Bright, a really well-known person of Lithgow, did so much for legacy, a really stout advocate for the RSL Club of Lithgow. I don't think she ever missed an Anzac Day or a Remembrance Day, and she'll be sorely missed. So just to commemorate the life of Murray Bright. Councillor Smith.
I'd like to honour the passing of Graham Dawson, who tragically got killed in a Queensland mine accident 2 weeks ago. Graham was a long life resident, grew up in Lithgow, and it's very sad for his family and for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. No public forum, Mr General Manager?
No, it's been a request.
I have a Merrill minute. Congratulations to Lachlan Sharp on the Olympic Games. Lithgow coal miner turned Australian hockey player Lachlan Sharp helped secure the Australian men's team a silver medal at the Tokyo Olympics. I noted I speak for the community when I express great pride in Lockie's achievement. I propose that Lachlan be formally recognised and thanked on behalf of the residents for his great efforts in hockey, and especially the Australian men's hockey team, the Kookaburras, and for being in the team that won the silver medal for Australia in the Tokyo Olympics. I've also asked that arrangements be made for a civic reception at a time that suits Lachlan. Of course, we are uncertain yet when or whether health orders will restrict this public participation. But meanwhile, I encourage the community to send their acknowledgements and congratulations to Lockie on his great achievement via our council email address, and they will be forwarded on to him. In the recommendation, Council acknowledge the achievements of Lachlan Sharp in his hockey career, congratulate him on his silver medal he received at the Tokyo Olympics in 2021, and note the intention for a civic reception to be held. I so put. Those in favour? Thank you. Declare that carried unanimous.
Mayor, before you go to the next item, I'd like to move a procedural motion that we move the deputy mayoral elections forward before the notice of motion, if I can, please.
Have I got a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Mr General Manager.
Mr Mayor, the report talks of the process to be followed. Of course, this is a consequence of the extension of this council beyond even a 5-year term, such that the deputy mayor position lapses. The business paper included opportunities to nominate. I've got one nomination. The report was prepared on the assumption that Council intends to appoint a deputy mayor for the remaining term, but I think procedurally Council should move that way. Then the requirement is to determine whether to hold an election and the method of voting, and then whether there's a fee. But historically and in practice there's been no fee paid to the deputy mayor at Lithgow. So that's where we're at. I guess Council needs to first take that decision to hold the election and formally recognise that. And
Second.
Councillor Smith, second Councillor Ring. Those in favour? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, I'd like to add a point. I'd like to add, I mean, mine's not working. I'd like to add a point 5, that determine the period for the deputy mayor to be 12 months from the day's vote, and in case of something goes wrong before December, if it's a massive outbreak of COVID in New South Wales, which they defer the election, I believe we should make it the same term as yours if you had to stay on. So it'll be 12 months from today through next year. It might only be a dummy vote or a dummy process, but in case we're coming out every 8 years.
A 12-month term or whatever comes first.
Yeah, exactly right.
Until the next election.
Yes,
Yeah.
until the next election, yes. Somebody, you
No,
have
I'm done that.
Who
Second that.
seconded that?
I
Councillor-
did, Mayor.
You happy with that, Councillor?
I'm more than happy
Yeah.
with that. Makes sense.
Okay, we'll put that in, councillors. Barry?
Oh, thank you.
And I would say that Councillor Kendra is elected unopposed.
Mr Mayor, I just need to confirm, because up until the matter being dealt with or the election being held, nominations can be received. At this point in time, I have one nomination that's been completed on the appropriate form. That nominates Councillor McAndrew. Councillor McAndrew, as the nominee, has signed that form, and it's been nominated by 2 other councillors, so it's a valid nomination.
Who are the nominees?
The nominators? The nominators were Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Smith.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, in the report it says that we don't have to have a deputy mayor because it's only approximately 6 weeks to go before caretaker mode. So I'm wondering why we even have to have a deputy mayor, to be truthful. I've spoken to other councils, and because it's only 6 weeks to go, in the event that you were ill or unavailable, I'm sure there's 8 councillors that can equally fill in for you after the next few weeks.
It says that council doesn't have to have a deputy mayor ever, not
That's correct.
just for 12 months. Not just for 1 month. It says council does not necessarily have to have a deputy mayor. It doesn't say anything about for 1 month. So, no, that's, I certainly can't take that on board, Councillor Statham.
No, I didn't think you would.
Let me say, Councillor Statham, you can have a little bit of time out in the foyer if you keep going down this track.
Well, Mr Mayor, the result of the election, therefore, is that Councillor McAndrew is returned or is elected as the Deputy Mayor. But that's the one nomination, but it has to be voted on, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding.
Still will have to be voted on, yes. So I put that Councillor Wayne McAndrew elected as Deputy Mayor until there's an election. I shall put that to the Council. Those against? Councillor Statham. Okay, now...
Mayor, can I just say very briefly, it continues to be a privilege to sit on council and sit in these chambers, and it's an extra privilege to continue to serve as Deputy Mayor, and I thank all of my fellow councillors for the support that they've given me.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. I still have to put the recommendation to councillors, as the 5 points are. I presume that that's what you voted on before, as the 5 points? No discussion on that? Okay, then. So I shall put that once again. Thank you. If I could just have a vote of hands, show of hands. Thank you. Right, we move to 10.2, delegations of the Deputy. Councillors, I've just been asked by the General Manager, are we dealing with this item also before the notice of motion? Yeah. I think that under the circumstances we should. Get the Deputy Mayor.
Happy to move.
Thank you.
Happy to second.
Second, thank you. Moved Councillor Coleman, seconded Councillor Smith.
Goodsall.
Oh, Goodsall was it? Sorry, Goodsall. Yeah. It's hard to tell when masks are on. Okay. Councillor Goodsall and Councillor Smith. I shall put that then. Those in favour? There's no discussion. Thank you. Righto, we go back now to notice of motion. Councillor Leslie.
Mayor, could I move another procedural motion? I note that we have a report on this matter as well at 10.2.1.5. I'd like to move that it be moved forward and the two matters be dealt with together.
Certainly makes sense. I got a seconder, Councillor Smith.
They certainly complement one another, Mayor, in my view, so I don't think there should be any concern about bringing them together.
Thank you. I shall. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Okay, notice of motion, Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'd like to move a slightly different motion to the one that's on the business paper, and that is that Lithgow Council oppose the New South Wales Government's Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan, and 2, engage suitable consultants to prepare a submission for presentation to the Government in opposition to this Waste to Energy Infrastructure Plan and against any regulation proposed by the Government implementing such a scheme for the Lithgow local government area.
Have you got a copy of that, Councillor Leslie?
Sorry, no.
So, Mayor, can I just clarify, it's opposing the plan and opposing the West Lithgow precinct?
I'll read point
Go out again, thanks, please, Councillor Leslie.
engage suitable consultants to prepare a submission for presentation to the Government in opposition to this Waste to Energy Infrastructure Plan and against any regulation proposed by the Government implementing such a scheme for the Lithgow local government area.
So that doesn't include just the West Lithgow precinct, that includes the whole Lithgow government area.
Mayor, I'm happy to second.
Councillor Leslie.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Thompson, the Independent Planning Commission refused the development application for the same waste to energy proposal for Eastern Creek Instrumental in that was the recommendation of the EPA. Citizens of Lithgow local government area are no less important than the citizens of Western Sydney. But you wouldn't know that from the report that we're reading in conjunction with this motion. The name of this proposal changes on a regular basis. It's now called Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan. Earlier it was called the Refuse Derived Fuel. It has been called Clean Energy. In fact, it should simply be called Burning Sydney's Waste. In February last year, when it came to council, it was called Mount Piper Energy Recovery Project. Let me refresh what happened at that meeting on the 24th of February 2020. There was a report by the Director of Economic Development and Environment with a recommendation that was moved without change, moved by Councillor Statham and seconded by Councillor Goodsell, that the information in the report on the Mount Piper Energy Recovery Project be noted, a submission be made to the application on behalf of Council. No recommendation either for or against the application, just that a submission be made. And 3, the General Manager be authorised to negotiate a voluntary planning agreement in relation to the project. There was an amendment to that, moved by Councillors McAndrew and seconded by Councillor Coleman, which was the information in the report on the Mount Piper Energy Project Recovery Project be noted, and 2, a submission be made on the application and 2, a submission be made opposing the application on behalf of the Council. That was moved by Councillors McAndrew, seconded by Councillor Coleman, and lost. The amendment was lost. Those in favour of the division was Councillors McAndrew, Coleman, Leslie and Smith. Against, Councillors Thompson, Goodsell, Goodwin, Ring and Statham. The original motion was then put, and it was also lost. It was moved by Councillor Statham and seconded by Councillor Goodsell, and it was lost. The divisions on that case were for it, Councillor Goodsell, Goodwin, Ring and Statham, and against Councillors Thompson, McAndrew, Coleman, Leslie and Smith. As a result of that, Lithgow Council made no recommendation at all. Now that was very bad news. It meant that the government could say the Lithgow Council had no position, and then when they make their own current report, they just ignore Lithgow Council. The report we have, the report that's the late report that's now on the business paper, is a very poor report in my view. What's missing from this report? There's no mention of our state member, Paul Toole. Suddenly our state member is irrelevant. Here's a member of the Cabinet that proposed this scheme, and I checked his Facebook page this afternoon. No mention of this matter on Facebook. No mention of the pollutants that will be emitted, sulphur dioxide levels, hydrogen sulphide levels, dioxin levels, no mention of that. No mention of the inadequate air monitoring currently in place. No mention of the potential pollution of the Cox's River and Warragamba Dam. No mention of the westerly winds over Wallerawang. No mention of the inversion layer over Lithgow. No mention that the council briefing session to discuss this was secret, and there was no minutes were presented, and no discussion.
Point of order, Mayor Thompson. I find it offensive that this councillor continues saying that we have secret meetings. We were briefed on this. We had Energy Australia here. Energy Australia also did a full environmental impact statement which was put out to the public. I would ask that the councillor stops insinuating that we have secret meetings, because it is not true.
There was no report of that briefing session was presented. the residents of Lithgow
could I
were
add-
not was able to do it.
Look,
There's no discussion.
Councillor Ring, if he mentions the word secret again, I shall certainly pull him up. But
Thank you, Mayor Thompson.
but until he goes down that path again, I shall allow him to speak.
No, that's fine.
No,
That's all I want.
and in the current report, no discussion of alternative waste strategies. The report seems to focus on how this scheme would benefit our area, or more accurately, how this scheme would be made to benefit our area. Quote, "It seems apparent that there is a case for financial compensation being payable to local councils, and so their communities where such facilities are hosted. Or in other words, for mere money, we will put our residents' health at risk. What union would allow, for example, we want you to work in an asbestos mine, but don't worry, we'll give you a pay increase?"
Councillor, I believe this is only your interpretation of the report. I certainly don't read it that way.
Oh, that's fine. Quote, "This council is committed to positioning its economy for the future. New industries and employment activities are being pursued. Council's pursuit of jobs does cause us to keep an open mind about the form of these jobs in the future. But let me tell you, new industries will cease. No one will come to Lithgow to open a business under a cloud of toxic pollution, and any potential for a tourism industry will immediately cease." But even this report gets something right. Quote, "Certainly the statements which accompanied the release of the plan spoke of these projects stimulating economic development across the regions. But at this point, there is no insight as to how that would be assured. There are no accompanying economic strategies. In the absence of any such clarity, it is difficult to keep an open mind that these energy-to-waste facilities will bring material benefits." Got it? There are no accompanying economic strategies. This report also states that the council may also find it difficult to formulate its views given the views of the community have not been sought. Now, I've got no trouble giving my views, but the community has been consulted. The Department of Planning, Industry and Environment called for submissions in January last year. They're online. There were 28 objections from the Lithgow local government area against the Mount Piper Energy Recovery Project. There were 3 in favour of the Mount Piper Energy Recovery Project, Councillor Ring and 2 others. And 1 person just made a comment. My conclusion to this is, this waste-to-energy scheme allows the government to abandon effective minimisation and recycling schemes. The minimal amount of energy that can be recovered from burning this waste in no way matches this. The creation of the waste material costs far more than can be recovered by the burning of it. There are well-documented health risks that have been taken into account by the EPA when they rejected the proposal for Eastern Creek, not canvassed in this sad report. And it's been pushed by the Deputy Premier Barilaro, who has shown no interest in helping Lithgow in the past. Remember how he would not even give Lithgow an opportunity to put in a proposal for the rail maintenance depot. And silence from his fellow Cabinet Minister, Paul Toole, our local member. Quote, "This plan on its own offers no apparent benefit to Lithgow. If it's not good enough for Eastern Creek in Western Sydney, it's not good enough for Lithgow." I move the motion.
Councillor McAndrew.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that procedural motion to deal with both the notice of motion and the report by staff, so we're not continually repeating ourselves. So I'm of the view now that we're dealing with both of them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start in relation to the the waste to energy policy plan. I'm going to deal with that, and then I'm going to then deal with specifically with the West Lithgow proposal. Look, the policy is called the Certainty for Community and Industry on Energy from Waste. I've read it in detail, Mayor. There's no certainty. There's no certainty whatsoever for the 4 communities in New South Wales earmarked for the precinct. No certainty whatsoever. In effect, the government has prohibited these projects from being advanced anywhere else in New South Wales other than those 4 locations. It talks about where it can and cannot go, but I've got to tell you, there's no real reason why. When you really drill down, there's no reasons why it should be here and shouldn't be in Western Sydney. It just doesn't detail well enough. One could sensibly expect, if they are to go anywhere, that they should be situated close to the source of where the waste is generated. And we've just heard from Councillor Leslie and in the past, the one at Blacktown that's been knocked back and now is not going to be put forward. That seems sensible to me, dealing with the source of waste at right where it's occurring. It talks about reducing carbon emissions while also respecting the concerns of the affected communities. Well, we've had no consultation, no communication. But it's clear about keeping it away from high-density residential areas. So what does that mean? It's fine to not have it there, but it's fine to have it near a light residential density area. I don't know. It doesn't explain that. The policy also states that the New South Wales Government has taken precautionary steps to restrict energy from waste from parts of New South Wales to protect human health and air quality. Well, what about ours? What about our area? What about our protection? There's nothing in there. It doesn't tell you how that's going to be looked at. Doesn't tell you why it should be here and why it shouldn't be there, and why it's different here and why it's different there. In truth, let's cut to the chase. In truth, energy to waste is simply an alias for what is a process, the burning of plastics, and getting rid of Sydney waste. It has nothing whatsoever to do with jobs and energy. There's a major issue of waste in Sydney at the current time, and it's been there for some time, and they're desperate to try and get rid of it, whatever way they can. It talks about, and this is taken straight from the policy, it talks about a manufacturing renaissance, whatever that means, and bringing jobs to regional New South Wales without any modelling or proof. In truth, the fact is these are ghost facilities with few jobs. They don't create many jobs. In any event, we, like many regional areas, are crying out for jobs, but that is not at any cost. We should not sell our soul for any form of industry. Ultimately, we represent our electorate, we represent our residents and ratepayers. As I said before, councillors received no forewarning about this policy. There's been no detailed discussion or consultation with council, and more importantly with our community. And guess what? This has been put forward during COVID, during coming up to Christmas, and going into caretaker mode. What a strange time to bring up something so important to community like this. The whole process, from reading of it, the whole proposal seems to be a knee-jerk one, lacks common sense and just raises more questions and concern. Now, in relation to the West Lithgow precinct, I've spoken to a lot of people over the last few days about a bit of a history about waste from Sydney trying to be put into our community. I spoke to some people that are more knowledgeable, been around longer than I, in relation to the pushback from our community over now what's close to 50 years. So, specifically with the West Lithgow precinct, on top of what I've already said, I want to make just a couple of points. I note now, with the decision by Energy Australia not to go ahead with the rail unloader, any waste will need to be delivered by road. Well, that's clear. It won't become by rail, it'll become by road. And what is equally important, and it's touched on when we talk about the Bell Quarry as well, what's equally important and sometimes gets forgotten is our community has a proud 50-year history of pushing back against Sydney waste being dumped, hidden, buried or burnt in our LGA. I, for one, do not want to be part of a council that opens the door to be that dumping ground. It's my view that the policy as it stands, and the West Lithgow precinct policy in particular, should be rejected in its entirety.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. This plan represents a win for Metropolis and at the expense of the region. The great city of Lithgow is not a tip for Greater Sydney. Greater City of Lithgow is not a tip for Sydney. We are much bigger and better than that. I remember in my teens in the 80s coming home to Lithgow from a trip out to Sydney, down the scenic we travelled. During the winter time we would look across and see the coal haze. Lithgow has come a long way since then. The days back then, both my grandfathers had donkeys, but give me a coal haze over a potential of what could be hanging over Lithgow and Wang when a westerly wind picks up. You will have a toxic haze, and I do not want that for the city of Lithgow. How does this fit into our tourism strategy? We want to push through the 7 valleys. I wouldn't want us to be nicknamed the Smelly Valleys. As for employment opportunities, 300 during construction, however when it's built, only 16. How many jobs will be retained in the tourism industry? And another question to think about is, why burn coal when you can burn Sydney rubbish? How does this affect our coal mining industry? That's a great concern. Another issue for local residents travelling from Lithgow to Portland will be the 46 truck movements a day, one way. I strongly oppose this.
Mayor Thompson,
Councillor Ring.
since we're dealing with 2 issues here, or 2 papers, I'll deal with Councillor Leslie's first. February 2017, the then Mayor Leslie described the project as a win-win, telling the ABC, we get extra power for New South Wales, we make sure the base load for energy in New South Wales is maintained. Councillor Leslie is on public record as supporting it. Not long after that, he opposed it. That's fine, that's his prerogative. However, Energy Australia's proposal is done and dusted. It's gone through the planning portal. As a council, we had an opportunity to comment on it. We didn't. Can't shut the gate. There's no point shutting the gate once the horse is bolted. It's gone. That's a separate process. That's going to go down and be dealt with. At the same time, let's not forget that Energy Australia is also proposing pumped hydro at Lake Wallace. I doubt they have the financial capacity or desire to run both programs. In the last week, they've announced that Mount Piper will close in 2040, 2 years earlier. In relation to Councillors Coleman, what about coal? Well, the coal industry in Lithgow is probably going to be dead by 2040. We had Centennial Coal's CEO here telling us pretty much 20 years, that was it. A lot of factors impacting on it. That's a shame. I've said many times that our coal goes above the equator, it becomes clean coal. It's only dirty coal when we burn it. But let's keep the 2 issues separate. Energy Australia proposal has been dealt with. It's in the planning process. And when it was on public exhibition, there were 97 individual submissions. My count's different to Councillor Leslie's. Maybe I'm not good at mathematics. I only counted 26 people from the local area who wrote in about it. And not everyone opposed it. And yes, I did support it. Technology is used overseas, and I did go through the environmental impact statement when it was put out, and a lot of the concerns were dealt with. Councillor Leslie knows as well as I do that the Eastern Creek proposal was different technology and did not meet the requirements that the New South Wales government wanted. Energy Australia may have no appetite for this project, I don't know. That's separate. So I won't be backing Councillor Leslie, I won't be supporting spending our funds to review this document, to review this policy and bring scientists in. There are 3 other council areas. Now, we all know 2 of those fully support waste to energy. Be it right or wrong, they support it. Richmond Valley Council is going to take the rubbish of 12 neighbouring councils. That's not a good waste management process. We shouldn't be making products that cannot be recycled. Let's not forget a lot of our recyclable energy providers are not recyclable either. Wind turbines can't be recycled, they're buried. We have problems, and that needs to be resolved in the long term. At the moment, No, I won't support Councillor Leslie's motion. In terms of the waste to energy policy position from the government, no, I don't support it. I was offended by the comments about the health, and I share Councillor McAndrew's view on that. I believe what's been put forward by the council is a fair and appropriate way to deal with that policy. We need consultation. We can sit here and say we're not going to have rubbish, but at the end of the day, if the rubbish comes here, and it could, if it does, if they do proceed with the waste to energy at Mount Piper, then there should be some financial benefit to this council. There was talk about a voluntary planning agreement. We need to see some benefit that comes to us. As for the pollutants, there was 24-hour air monitoring at the proposed Mount Piper plant. But quite frankly, if they're going to close Mount Piper in 2040, it's now 2021, I really can't see the benefit in building this new proposal. Not for 200,000 tonne of waste. That's all they're talking about. As we were advised by the EPA, the bulk of waste is going to Goulburn from Sydney, and I think from next year they'll be getting the waste from Canberra. It'll go on the ground. We're running out of spots to bury it. I will never support a blanket ban on waste coming to Lithgow. I will support waste coming here to be dumped in the ground. Waste has a potential in the future to be a very valuable industry. Recycling, reprocessing, repurposing waste, to give it new life, could create jobs. We're not there yet. But at the moment, I support the council's position on the waste to energy policy. I will not support Councillor Leslie's notice of motion. Thank you.
Councillors, any other commentary?
Yep.
Councillor.
I'm of exactly the same opinion as Councillor Ring. I don't support Councillor Leslie's notice of motion, and I do support Council's recommendation. Obviously, there's not enough information, communication and consultation to date. However, I'm going to reserve my decision until this occurs, until we know what the economic benefits specifically are for our local government area. This long-standing position on opposing importation of Sydney's waste, my opinion, but I don't like that statement. I don't think it's necessary. It's certainly not my position, and it's certainly not policy. Why mention it at all? I'm certainly not going to oppose something that I don't know all the facts on. I'm not going to speculate on the potential benefits nor the potential negative aspects. I wholeheartedly support the recommendation by Council that no further action be taken until consultation with the community occurs and the benefits assessed and the monetary input from other councils reallocating the waste be assessed also. So for me at this time, it's like assessing a DA without the facts, and I'm certainly not going to rule out until I know more information.
Smith.
I'm like Councillor Ring, Councillor Goodsall. I can't support Councillor Leslie's motion. We throw enough money at consultants as it is in our local area. I think it's time that we got our local member to stand up for us and say, no, we don't want this. I don't think there's a councillor in this room wants this wasted energy, and that's what it is. We're burning Sydney waste. I remember 7 years ago, we closed a power station of mine, and the New South Wales government said to us, oh yeah, we'll look after you, we'll help you down, we'll create jobs. They need to throw $50 million at our local government area if we want to achieve any chance of getting employment back in this area. Because at the moment, they're not giving us a lot towards employment. It's all right to sit here and say we'll burn Sydney's waste. No, I don't want it burned over at Councillor Coleman's house or in the town of Wallerawang or out Councillor Statham's area. I don't want to burn it anywhere in our area. But I'm fearful that the state government, this just come out of the blue. I know we've had consultation on a little bit of information sessions, but this decision by the Deputy Premier and the Mayor, you rang myself and Councillor McAndrew and said, you won't be happy, boys. We're certainly not happy. We don't want this in our area. There's no consultation with the public. It's all right to say, there's 97 submissions. I could name 99% of the people in this area don't want it. Not all the oldies go and put submissions in. They tell us as councillors. That's how we get the word out. No one I've spoke to wants a bar of this, and we should vote totally against this and say to Paul, back us up here. We don't want it. That's it. Done and dusted.
Yeah, Mayor Thompson, I'm on the same wavelength as Councillor Goodsall, Councillor Smith and Councillor Ring. I can't support Councillor Leslie's submission. We need community consultation about the facility. This was just dropped on us without any consultation at all. I've gone through some of the pros and cons of waste to energy. Decrease some of the pros: the decrease of waste from between 80 to 95% of waste. Efficient waste management: 90% of the waste is disposed of. These are the pros. Production of heat and power: 300 million tonnes is converted into power every year. Many countries are using this overseas. Europe, Japan, Sweden uses 8% of their electricity in relation to waste to energy. The reduction of pollution: it's less likely to pollute the environment than landfill. Landfill produces a higher greenhouse gases. Landfill leaches poisons into the groundwater. They have filters on the stacks to trap poisonous gases and pollutants. It's better control over odour and noise than landfill. Prevents production of methane gases. Eliminates harmful gases. It can be done in any weather. It's effective. Metal recycling. There's computerised monitoring. The use of ash and other materials in construction can be used. It can be done on a relatively small space, and it doesn't. It reduces the contamination of groundwater. Some of the cons against it, though: it's very expensive. It does essentially does pollute the environment to a certain extent, not as much as ground landfill, as from what I can see. It damages public health in areas. Possible long-term problems. The ash waste is harmful to people and the environments, and there is a problem with environmental racism in relation to where they're putting it, usually in lower socio-economic areas, or areas where people will just say we need the money rather than the environmental benefits. Now, I'm on the fence of this. I need to know more information about what Sydney are proposing in relation to this. I don't want it to come over and in 20 years' time know that, you know, we've contributed to some harm in the community. I think that if it's better than coal-fired power stations, and we're doing less emissions than coal-fired power stations, and they can do that, I think that would be a better outcome. But I need to know more about it than what's just been dumped on us in the last week. It's not something that I can make a decision on until I know exactly what is going on. So they're my comments in relation to this proposal.
Mayor Thompson, I agree that we need more information. Would it be impossible to write to the Minister Barilaro and see if he can arrange an on-site meeting here to actually, so we can see, we can hear first-hand information, unless this is a foregone conclusion, which I don't know whether it is or not, but we should be able to have at least a visit from the people that are suggesting this without any consultation. So may I suggest that we contact Minister Barilaro and Mr Toole and have a meeting and see if we can have an on-site meeting as soon as possible.
Look, before I ask Councillor Leslie for the right to reply to his motion, and I'll have to do them separately. I can support Councillor Leslie's motion without point 2 in it. I certainly don't want to be supporting consultants to come in, our consultants against their consultants or whatever it be, and pay a lot of money for a nil result. I then go back to our government. If you reflect on what this government's done, they went into amalgamations of council without any consultation whatsoever. They got rid of the greyhounds without any consultation whatsoever. And I really believe that our regional representatives need to stand up and be counted for regional areas. When you look at the numbers of the 4 areas that are concerned, there's most probably 100,000 max in those particular 4 areas. Blacktown Council has got 350,000 people. So in the first instance, there was going to be an incinerator at Eastern Creek. It got shelved, and then all of a sudden there was going to be a incinerator at Blacktown, and I presume still at Eastern Creek. The EPA said, when they were here the other day, that they said that there's cities in Japan and Copenhagen where these incinerators are in the middle of the cities. So if they're in the middle of the cities in Japan and Copenhagen, why can't they be in Blacktown, is what I say. Sydney's creating the waste. They should be getting rid of their waste if it can be done safely. And I can't see any reason why, if these incinerators are so perfect, that you can't have one in Sydney. So that's my little bit. Certainly, Councillor Leslie, right a reply.
Mayor, could I just get a clarification before the right of reply, if I may? If what you're saying is that you support one, oppose the New South Wales Government Waste Management Plan, well, that says to me the Waste Management Plan includes within it the West Lithgow project precinct. So, as far as I'm concerned, that satisfies me. That satisfies me. Because opposing the New South Wales Government Waste Management Plan, that opposes the West Lithgow precinct.
Yeah, I'm happy to support that. I'm not supporting that.
I'm happy then, Mayor, to put forward an amendment, if I may. I know I'm late, but I needed that clarification.
If I could comment.
Yes.
Yep.
I've listened to the debate. I'm happy to, with Councillor McAndrew's support, remove point 2.
I'm happy to second that on that basis, Mayor.
I'm happy to support that on that basis.
Therefore, the motion would now read that Lithgow Council oppose the New South Wales Government's Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan.
Yep.
Now, however, there is the problem of putting in a submission, and I don't believe that
Excuse me, councillors. When you speak into the microphone, lower your mic so as I think it's fairly plain. Your mask, and then put it back up. Thank you.
But we do need to support the point 1 with a statement from the council. We can't just send it off as a bland statement like that. We need to come back with details. Now, I don't think that the late report that we got does that. It seems to be far too equivocal on too many issues. But if I can be assured, Mr. Mayor, that the General Manager is able to hear that and come up with a report that perhaps with consultation with Councillor McAndrew, who is far more experienced in this matter than I am, to come up with a stronger statement from Lithgow Council. I think that needs to be done. Strong and firm, and of course needs to. But if I could just get a nod to that effect, I'd be happy just to.
Mr Mayor, the council's yet to take the decision, but whatever the council's decision is will give full and aggressive effect to it. Clearly this is a significant issue.
That's the nod I wanted. In that case, I put it in because I wasn't comfortable about that, but I'm now I am now comfortable about that. That we take a firm position on it, and we fight it, and we let everyone know, the Deputy Premier, our state member, know this. There's a few things I would like to comment. We did have a very effective spokesperson for the EPA speak to us at the councillor briefing session, the one that doesn't have, never mind. And she was extremely good, but she was speaking for the government. She wasn't speaking for us, she was speaking for the government, and she was putting her position, and we can't just accept that as is. Second point I make is, if this proposal goes through, or we're equivocal about it in any way, we'll get it, and we've got it forever. We don't get it for 20 years, we don't get it till 2040. I'll be long gone by then, but we won't get it to 2040, we get it to 3000. It just goes forever, because there's because the waste minimisation that is needed and the recycling schemes that are needed are going to be put on the back burner, because this is the cheap way. This is the way to do it without having to worry about, making proper, hard decisions. So you've got to be aware of that. Again, if this goes through, there won't be jobs here. People won't come to Lithgow to bring an industry, under a toxic cloud. I mean, there's plenty of places looking for have industry come to them. Plenty of places in the country. Why come to Lithgow if it's going to be just slightly to the east, with our westerly winds here, our prevailing winds, just passing the substance over the top of us. The West Lithgow precinct, it doesn't exist except in the government's mind. There's no such place as West Lithgow precinct. There isn't such a place. I mean, but there's a place just to the east of Portland and just to the west of Wallerawang that encompasses a far greater area than the Mount Piper precinct. It's not the Mount Piper precinct, and of course, once this goes through, then of course it doesn't have to be Mount Piper. They can build a power station wherever they like. They can just do it, and it's not a big job. Seriously, the stack for this proposal is about a third the height of the one they've got at Mount Piper at the moment. So just go for it. And of course, we've been told by the government report that rail transport is not feasible. It will come by road, and there were 97 people, 97 submissions in with the that came from the I'll leave that. There were 97 proposals, of which only four supported it, 3 from the local government area, Lithgow local government area, 1 from outside, and a couple of people who just made comments and that wasn't clear. But it's, it doesn't only just affect Lithgow. We've got to think a bit more broadly. It affects the people of the Blue Mountains, and there are people from the broader New South Wales population who understood the problems of having an easy solution so that you don't come out. And the last point I'd make is Energy Australia has not come out opposing this scheme. I mean, they've talked about closing their coal power station in 2020, 2 years early, but they haven't, and they've had opportunities, they've had plenty of time to do it, but they have not come out opposing this scheme. And if their fully foreign-owned company wishes to do it, they will. If they don't want to do it, they won't. It's got really nothing to do with the local Energy Australia management. They're not the people who are going to make these decisions. And I don't care what other council areas do. I'm talking for Lithgow Council, and I think we need to stand firm on this.
Okay, councillors, I shall put it
Excuse
as,
me, Mayor Thompson, what's the recommendation?
the recommendation is point 1 with point 2 missing.
I think it's got the other way around.
Fix it. It was right.
We haven't got it over.
We haven't got it here, we've only got the part 2. I
Yeah.
can't read the...
Is there?
Yeah, we've only got part 2 here.
All I can see is after debate, Councillor Leslie and Councillor McAndrew withdrew point 2, but we need the...
And if you read down a little bit further, resolution that Lithgow Council opposed the New South Wales government.
It's not on ours.
Yeah, it is in now. Yes, sorry, thank you. I've got it now. Resolution has got a number, it's got it.
Yep, I'm with you, yep.
It hasn't been resolved yet, but it's...
Right, I shall put it to council. Those in favour?
It's not quite what I moved.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
I'll just read what I moved. That Lithgow Council oppose the New South Wales Government's Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan. Energy from Waste.
That's the next item. That's the next item.
The Lithgow Council opposed the New South Wales Government's Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan.
Okay, those in favour? Those against? 3 against. Councillor Goodwin, Goodsall and Ring.
Point of order, Mayor Thompson. Just want to comment on Councillor Leslie continually saying, murmuring things, personal things in the background over there about my voting, my comments.
Sorry, I didn't hear it, Councillor Goodsall, so I can't.
Sorry, could you repeat what I said?
Good for council. So he's highlighting the fact that we've got an opinion of our own and that we're voting our own way.
No.
Haven't spoken to Councillor Goodwin or Ring about this. I speak about what I think, and I don't need him slouching back in his chair, calling me mealy mouth, making mealy mouth recommendations, and I don't appreciate good for council as if this is going to be bad for the community.
I'm sorry, Councillor Goodsall, I didn't say it. If I had it, I would have acted on it. I appreciate your comments.
He did say it.
And Councillor Leslie, will you keep your comments to yourself if you did say it? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that.
I'll second that.
Yeah, can I have a clarification here? We voted on Councillor Leslie's notice of motion. Weren't we voting on the also?
No, we joined the 2.
Yeah, so that's covered both now. Right, that's what Councillor Goodsall's the same as me. Okay, so I only have got to have the one vote. Thank you. I had the invitation from the Mayor to sit on and meeting with the proponents for this lease agreement for the Wang Indoor Stadium. They put across a very good case. It's good that it's finally come to council. It's been a long time coming. We all voted to sit down with these proponents and have a good meeting, which we did. It was very constructive. I think Councillor McAndrew will back me up on that. One thing I would like to see in point 5 of the recommendation is, it says, WISA be requested to an annual presentation of the council outlining details such as patronage, utilisation statistics, key achievements and challenges. I'd like to see the word financials put in there as well. I know it's on page 14 of 61. It says financials. The key terms of the proposed licence agreement are as follows. I believe the whole setup of this is that they are to put their financials in and show the council they're a non-profit organisation. I'd like to see the word financials go in point 5 if I could get it in, please.
Yes, Mr Mayor, no issue at all with that. That's the only purpose to which we're really entitled or need to see the financial statements to prove that status.
Thank you. Yeah, I finished it. Thank you.
I did. Yes, I would like to second this, but before I do that, I'd like to ask a couple of questions that are a little bit troubling. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly. On page 14, down the bottom on point 7, it says fund the fees and bonds paid to WISA for use of this. I have seconded it, but there's a couple of well, there's a couple of issues here that I don't know whether they're correct or whether it's a misprint. It's very confusing to me, and I've had it checked by somebody else to do with netball. It says that fund on point 7 on page 14, the fees and bonds paid to WISA for use of the centre will form a fund managed by WISA. WISA may use the fund to pay for the running expenses of the centre, including for the purchase of equipment, furniture and fittings for the purpose of the centre. Any surplus funds may be used to carry out improvements, repairs to the centre and for other purposes if approved by the Minister and Council. Then up the top on page 15, cleaning, maintenance and repair. WISA will be responsible for cleaning, caretaking, general security of the centre when the centre is available for hire, as well as floor maintenance program. Council is responsible for essential services, structural repairs and fair wear and tear. Down the middle of the page it says the financial implications listed relate to the entering of the lease agreement only and do not account for any cost or expense relating to maintenance of the facility. Could you please explain that to me, please?
Mr Mayor, I'm comfortable having a go at that, and I've got Mr Muir and Mr Edgecombe here. But fundamentally there are different responsibilities which will be clearly enunciated in this agreement. And by and large, WISA is substantially responsible for minor maintenance, cleaning and the like. There are large cost items that are very defined, such as the floor. Periodically, I think each 10 years, it needs a major re-sanding. So the agreement very specifically assigns the costs that and activities it will be responsible for, and they're the more high cost items. And by and large, the day-to-day administration, maintenance and cleaning are also spelled out in the agreement to WISA. The comment further down about financial implications, that's merely saying that all we've had a regard for here is the cost of developing this licence agreement. That's our internal cost, if you like, for shaping the licence agreement.
A typical example, Councillor Statham, is that once every 2 years, the WISA will do a slight sandback and redo the floor. After 10 years.
Mayor Thompson, is not the issue. It is the next sentence. Council will be responsible services, structural repairs and fair wear and tear. And then down here it says not account for any cost expenses relating to maintenance of the facility.
Yeah, well,
so that's very confusing.
Structural is always the leaseor that's got to look after the structural problems. So in any business.
Well, up here it says the council is, so...
Well, we own the building. Well, we're the principal owner of the building. Yes.
Yes.
Mr Mayor, I'm
see
happy to
that.
go through it one more time. So the council, the agreement, clearly there are costs for recurrent smaller items, and then there are large items. Council, by and large, is responsible for the larger items, less frequent, and the like, and WISA are responsible, and it's all defined in the agreement. So that's how the agreement deals with costs. In terms of Councillor Statham's comment about the financial implications only relate to the licence agreement, remember that in these reports, this section, financial implications above, that describes how much the project or the matter is costing council. And what it's saying is this agreement is done in-house by our in-house legal property person. So that's why it's got not applicable or nil. What's it got there? It's got not applicable because there's not a big budget. We haven't expended a lot of money. It's just a staff member has done all of the work to assemble this agreement.
Mayor, could I just ask a question of clarification in relation to the recommendation itself? It's recommendation 2, 3 and 6. So touching on 2, council give public notice of the proposed licence agreement, place a licence public exhibition for at least 28 days. My understanding with past things like this is that once that occurs, and if there's opposition or there's submissions against, for example, it comes back to council. But 3, I think, is saying that following the public exhibition period, council apply to the Minister for Local Government for approval of the proposed licence agreement, provide the Minister a copy of any submission received during the public exhibition period. It's sort of not saying that council gets a say. And in 6, so I'm clear, is what we're doing tonight is about the 2-year licence agreement, and if the organisation wants to go further for the 20-year term, it'll come back to a meeting of council. So if I could get clarification on 3 and 6, and my only concern is about if there's submissions opposing, and there's quite a number of them, it seems to me it doesn't come back to council, it just goes ahead, and the only time council gets an opportunity to look back into it if they want to take the option of the 20-year and it comes back to council to be dealt with then.
Mr Mayor and Council, I always take it that it's policy, or in the least implied, that in any of these recommendations that if there is objection or substantial concern, that the matter will be returned to council. So if that's not stated there, I apologise, but it certainly will be the practice, and it is practice. We're dealing with an agreement. The agreement will run for 2 years initially, but it will have a 20-year option. But if WISA elects to take up that 20-year option, that will come back to council to agree to that before proceeding with that 20-year.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I ask just a question to the General Manager? For the 20-year option, I know this is very similar to the basketball stadium in Lithgow. With the 20-year option, the stadium in Lithgow is a 10-year option. Is there a reason why it's 20 years? It just seems a long time.
I shouldn't really be commenting on these so much because I know Andrew Muir knows all the answers, but I've just been in a meeting, and it's in the meetings also. There's an agreement with the state, and that agreement has a particular calendar. And so this 20 years aligns our agreement with that calendar and our obligation to government.
Any other commentary, councillors? Yes, right, a reply.
I just have one question for the General Manager. So in the event that Wizard by some chance do the wrong thing and there's a public uproar, then the council can get involved in regards to Wizard not doing the right thing? Is that how it works, General Manager? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we need to know these questions.
It's a tenant-landlord arrangement, and it's we have the fortune of having a very good property/legal officer in-house now, and that person is contemporising all of these agreements.
Right.
So this is going to be a properly constructed agreement between a landlord and a tenant.
Yep.
If there are breaches of the agreement, there is a capacity when certain circumstances happen that can trigger a breach of the lease or the agreement, and it can be surrendered or fail.
Thank you.
Let me say it's a lot tidier than it was. Yeah. Okay, any other commentary, councillors? I know that you've had the right to reply. I shall put that then. Those in favour?
Move the motion.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that.
I just moved it.
I'll second it.
Look, it's a good report. Council is opposed to what was proposed at the disused quarry. And as I said when it came to council, the quarry has been rehabilitated. This is a grab for cash, and I think council is pursuing this matter through the Land and Environment Court. Unfortunately, our legal system allows the appeal. The appeal's got to go through. With any luck, it won't win, and the quarries will remain as they are. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Thompson. There was an online land and environment preliminary hearing on Thursday, the 23rd of September, between the applicant and LCC, and there was a face-to-face meeting on Friday, the 24th. So I wonder if we could, which are not included in this report, I was wondering if we could get an update on what happened at those two meetings.
Mr Muir?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The only formal interaction that has taken place was the conciliation conference. There's been no other meeting.
And what happened?
No agreement was reached. That's what the report says. No agreement was reached, so we're off the hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Speaking to the motion, I understood that those meetings were presided by a registrar, not a commissioner, but nonetheless, it'll have to go to a formal meeting of the Land and Environment Court. I was proud to be Lithgow Council's representative on the Western District's planning panel that unanimously rejected this DA. As the representative, I've been unable to speak at this council meeting, and I had to declare an interest, and I left that. That's now a matter of the past. So I was very pleased that I was able to be there, and that the Western District's planning panel did unanimously reject this DA. I'd also like to congratulate the council's insistence in their hearings on calling this a waste proposal and not a quarry rehabilitation proposal. I think it's important that we get these titles right, so that there's no pretense about it, because it's very clear that Lithgow Council and the EPA have agreed that the rehabilitation of that quarry is complete, and that natural processes that are taking place can continue. So I'm hopeful that that the EPA that the Land and Environment Court will understand that and accept that the proposal that the DA being put forward is not genuine. It's not a genuine rehabilitation process. It's a pretense to that for ulterior motives.
Any other commentary, councillor?
Yeah, Mayor, could I make a couple of comments and a question? And I take on board, and I won't repeat what Councillor Leslie has said. It was said at the last time this report came that this is a waste proposal application, nothing more, nothing less. And I also on page 16, it's keen to see that we've continued to use the policy of it being a long-standing position of Lithgow City Council to impose importation of Sydney waste to Lithgow local government area. Mayor, I want to request the name of the applicant. I know we received an email late this afternoon. I only briefly looked at it, but I think we're in a public council meeting. it's important that the name of the applicant owner is made, the same as any development application. The name of the applicant owner should be made apparent. And I'm asking, can that be formally put tonight?
The applicant in this matter was the Bell Quarry Rehabilitation Project. The owner is a company called Chaluhi, C-H-A-L-O-U-H-I Rural Proprietary Limited. C-H-A-L-O-U-H-I Rural Proprietary Limited. Also, if I may, Mr. Miller, Councillor Leslie, you clarified a question, I guess, in my mind when you mentioned the word registrar. Certainly there has been matters of procedure where the party solicitors go before the registrar, and what that has led to is what's called this week a directions hearing, which will be on Wednesday, I believe, and that's when we'll know the actual hearing dates. Council certainly has a position that it has. The other party has a position. I wouldn't like at a public forum to disclose too much because I would like to protect the council's position and get the best outcome.
May I ask a question, please, Mayor Thompson? Through you, Mayor Thompson, to Mr. Muir, is this company a local company or an outside company?
I don't believe they're a local company, no.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Once again, Lithgow is not a tip for Greater Sydney. We are much bigger and better than that. And this is an example, once again, of someone trying to use Lithgow as a tip. It's really frustrating.
No, that's fine, thank you. Put it to the vote.
Happy to move.
Happy to
Happy to
second.
second. Oh.
I'm very pleased to see this going to be sorted out. I know it's been a bit of a battle through COVID and all this sort of stuff, but it'll be great to see this MOU done and dusted. And I know the Better Green Spot are keen to work with the council and really make Lake Wallace a great tourism mecca, bigger than what it is. Thank you.
Look, I think it's good that if we get this signed off, then Green Spot move forward in developing a master plan, and we know where we stand, and we can look at do we lease the land? Is it going to be given to us? Do we purchase the land? We can look at managing Lake Wallace into the future with some sort of certainty. So I think it's a really good outcome.
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. One of the pathways for Lithgow in regards to future employment is tourism, and Lake Wallace is a very desirable site. I just have a question. I understand that the draft MOU should be coming back to the October meeting. Won't council be in caretaker mode? How does this affect the draft MOU? I just wanted to understand that process.
Mr. Muir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is that the limitations during caretaker period are quite specific, and I don't believe that they would negate the council from the consideration of a memorandum of understanding. No.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I need to clarify something. This will be, if it hopefully comes, and I want to see that the October meeting, the caretaker period won't kick in until the 4th of November.
True.
So it'll be certainly after the October meeting. We can certainly make that decision in the October meeting. Look, I support it. It's good to see that we're moving quickly. There's no doubt when COVID, where there's some control over COVID and the restrictions are to a certain extent lifted, then I think Lake Wallace is going to be one of those areas that are going to be very, very popular. So I honestly support this memorandum of understanding, and I think we need to move on it quickly. I want to take this opportunity, though, to acknowledge Councillor Smith as well for the work that he's been doing behind the scenes, and the work he's been doing both with council and with Green Spot getting us to this point. He needs to be congratulated.
Yeah, I take that on board. Yes, congratulations, Councillor Smith.
Mayor Thompson, may I speak? Thank you.
Yes.
I realise this is a memorandum of understanding. However, I've been approached by dozens and dozens of people after this went through early in the year to see if there's going to be a fence around so that locals will have to pay to go on their walks of a morning. This is something that needs to be considered because the locals walk down around the lake every morning, dozens and dozens of them, and they're quite upset that the plan may include an entry fee.
I would think that was for campus. I certainly wouldn't think that would be for locals. But anyway, yeah, Mr. Muir.
I don't believe that's ever been countenanced in my view, no, in my recollection, no. That I...
All right, good.
Councillor Smith, right to reply?
No, thank you, Mayor.
I shall put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. 10.3, budget for cemeteries.
Move it.
Happy to second.
Move Councillor Ring, second Councillor Smith. Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, I support the recommendation that the administration has put up. It makes sense. With roadworks being done in that area, any roadworks or any work undertaken by council could be ripped up. And there's always the opportunity that we could get RMS to actually fund some of the work for us. So I think it's very smart to actually defer and then reallocate that money to other cemeteries. There's no shortage of work with the cemeteries. Thank you.
I note in the report the Wang Cemetery is not mentioned in this regard. That the fence at the Wang Cemetery is not a good look. Half the fence is well mesh and the other half the fence is 10 gauge wire. I know for about 6 or 7 years ago a car went through into the cemetery itself. Surely we can put in future reference for the Wang Cemetery for a new fence to be in some form of budgetary explanation, because it's in dire straits of a new fence.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. I note in the report that it states, with the recent announcement of the Great Western Highway upgrade within the Hartley area, I have no issues with the recommendation. My question is in regards to that statement. Is a report in regard to the Great Western upgrade through Hartley ever going to come to this council?
It certainly won't come to this council, but it will be very, very early in the next council, I would think. But,
Thank you. Can I ask that through staff?
You can, but I can see him up there nodding in agreeing with what I said.
Oh, Nick, I didn't see him, I'm sorry. I just saw you. So, are you nodding?
Yeah. We've arranged a presentation for this council.
Could you please explain?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. The administration is regularly speaking with Transport for New South Wales, and there is a plan in place to have Transport address the new council very early in the new calendar year.
All right.
That will be made a priority, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commentary, councillors? Councillor Ringrider, to reply?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I shall put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimous. Renaming of Upper Turon Road.
I'll move that way, thank you.
Move Councillor Statham. Second and Councillor McKendry. Councillor Statham.
This may sound like definition of confusion. However, this road in question has the majority of support from the Dark Corner, Sunny Corner, Palmerzoki area, noted in the previous submissions. The naming of the road, Turon Gates Road, will be less likely to cause concern for emergency services, police, tourists, Telstra, locals and visitors, of course. The locals were concerned that a delay, if a medical incident occurred, that would take more time for an ambulance to get to that particular road because of the signage. I do believe the Bushfire Brigade captains and of both Dark Corner and Palmerzoki will be very delighted if this gets to be named the Turon Gates Road. So I think that the recommendation on page 24 to call the Turin Gates Road will be something that the locals will very much benefit by. And there were some submissions against other namings, but the majority of people out there seem to be quite happy with the recommendation by council.
Yeah, Mayor, very briefly, I do recall when this matter was dealt with in our July meeting, and by far the majority of submissions by far were in support of the Turin Gates Road. I honestly thought we'd dealt with it, but I take it this is the last part of the process, and hopefully it'll be all done and dusted now.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Mr Edgecombe and the senior management, and also all the council staff that work down there on this vaccination hub in regards to traffic control and everything. They've done a great job. It was a great team effort, and it was great for Lithgow. The only question I have is the Army coming back for this round 2? Yeah, but I seen on the local news tonight, Lithgow's dates weren't on the prime local news.
Yeah, we're not advertising dates because it's the return of the facility is specifically only for those people that were vaccinated by that facility in the first round. So anybody else will be turned away. There's also potentially we're looking at possible opportunities for other clinics down the track as well. So we're actively advocating for that as well.
Yeah, Councillor, the ADF won't be coming back, but it will be a group coming back from European Health. Yes. Councillor Goodsall?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo Councillor Smith's sentiments on that one, but I've also got a question related to COVID through you, Mr Mayor, to Mr Edgecombe. Just wondering, there has been an increase in cases. What's the possibility of what level do we get to, or do we get notified by New South Wales Health for another drive-through clinic?
Mr Edgecombe?
Very timely that you should mention that. I've been in contact with Douglas Hanley Moir as of this morning. They've confirmed that they will re-attend for at least a week, and that facility will commence operating Wednesday morning, this coming Wednesday.
Very good question, Councillor Goodsall. I didn't know that either.
Mr Mayor, also, can I ask a question as well?
Councillor Gundren.
Again, congratulations to everyone. That was very well done. The expenditure to date, 14,305. Just, is there a breakup of any in kind, or is it all actual? Probably through to Mr Gurney or Mr Edgecombe.
I can confirm that all of the costs incurred to date are costs that we have incurred through use of our own staff and resources, and all of those costs for the testing clinic, they'll be covered. There's an agreement between Council and Douglas Hanley Moir, the private company, and for the vaccination clinic, there's an agreement between Council and New South Wales Health. So all of the costs incurred by Council for the operation of these facilities will be borne by each organisation respectively.
And sorry, while you're there, just in relation to the COVID situation,
Yep.
Close contact facilities where COVID positive people have been, I know Health have been a bit slow on releasing that information. Is there a way through the LEMC that we can get that information a little bit faster? I think a lot of people are contacting me saying, you know, where are these facilities or where are these places that people have gone? I may have gone, they're not on the health system, they're not on the website or anything like that. So I was wondering if you can have a look at that for us.
I hear your concerns, and I hear the concerns of the community in this regard also. Both myself as the LEMO and Chief Inspector Samet as the Local Emergency Operations Controller, both he and I have raised this matter through the regional and state emergency management meetings today. The feedback from Health is that in the coming weeks they'll be pushing very hard for vaccinations, but the resources are very tight with respect to being able to identify venues of concern. They are doing everything they possibly can in this space, and they will continue to do so. But I hear the concerns of the community, and we continue to raise this when we have the opportunity.
It just seems like the Bathurst on their website just pops straight up, but Lithgow are being left behind, that's all.
It is the same organisation, the same branch of the of health that manage this. So it's not anybody being treated differently to anyone else or additional resources for anywhere else. It's just the resourcing constraints around that function.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. We have an election coming up on the 4th of December, and Lithgow Council does have a duty of care. So I have a question about poll clerks. Will only double vaccinated people be allowed to be poll clerks? That's one question. And the second question is, which I understand is probably not unable to be answered here, if all restrictions are lifted as proposed, as I heard today in their road path, if all restrictions are lifted on the 1st of December, what is to stop unvaccinated citizens from visiting polling stations? And will every polling booth in a polling station be cleaned after every voter?
I think that's a question we'll have to take on notice, Councillor Leslie, and get back to you.
But what about the first one? Will only double vaccinated people be allowed to be poll clerks? That has to be within
the electoral
council's
the electoral
prerogative.
commission would have to give us advice on that. You know, like we as a governing body, we wouldn't have any say in that. That'll be statewide, I would think. But, Mr. Gentleman.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's very clear the Electoral Commission is responsible for the conduct and running of the election, and one would presume and hope and know that they would have COVID-safe practices. But if there are specific questions, we can take those on notice. Of course, we're taking an interest in strongly representing the safety of the community.
I just raise it because even with the best will in the world, by the 4th of December, there will still be 1 million or so citizens, of New South Wales or anyway of Australia, but certainly that probably don't even have one vaccination, and yet these same citizens are entitled to vote.
To reply, Councillor Smith.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Look, just coming back to the comments by Councillor Goodwin, there's no doubt the number of cases, and more specifically the active cases, have created no end of confusion out in our local government area. It's clear now it's not just a matter of vaccination, it's a matter of how many numbers you have in your local government area about where you end up with restrictions. So it's becoming a very important aspect of this whole COVID thing. The question I've got as well, fantastic, 1,631 people vaccinated over that period of 3 days. And I note the report talks about the administration continuing to press for the data which will allow an assessment of the impact of this facility on vaccination rates within the Lithgow local government area. So how many of that 1,631 do we know? How many of those were specific from our local government area? Because they're the important figures for us as councillors. Do we know those?
Councillor, I'm pretty sure that Mr. McGrath was trying to chase up those figures. I don't know whether he... it's Mr. Edcombe.
Sorry about that. It is a very important question, and a question I'd particularly like to have answered as well. We continue to ask New South Wales Health for that, and if anything is forthcoming, the councils will be the first to know.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor, the other one is just by way of a comment. I have to congratulate Dr. Haran and his staff from Wallerawang. Everyone's playing a role in this vaccination. Council has, and this fantastic result from that immunisation clinic. But I understand, and I know other doctors and pharmacies and everything else. But in some of the figures that I've received as a councillor, emails, I think Portland and especially Wang are very high. with both first and second doses, and I think a lot of that comes down to the work that's not only been done by out there by Dr. Rani's staff, but the community people that have also been helping out and encouraging people to have that. So I just wanted to put that on the record as well, Mayor, if I may.
Mayor Thompson, too, I'd like to congratulate the Portland Community Centre. The medical centre out there has been like a non-stop, you know, I've been there when there's been probably 30 people waiting at a time, all distanced, all done very professional, and it saves a lot of people going out of town, so we've welcomed that for sure.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Look, I just want to note in the report it states Lithgow is very fortunate to have received the opportunity to host both the testing clinic and the vaccination clinic, and the report is very good, and Mr Edgecombe should be complimented on that. What I'd like to put on the record, Mayor Thompson, is that Lithgow should never be treated like an afterthought. Lithgow, like every other regional town, has the right to be vaccinated and a hub in order to protect our residents, especially given our proximity to Greater Sydney and the Blue Mountains. Our community has a very high exposure risk to essential workers travelling between Greater Sydney and regional New South Wales. Lithgow residents should never be treated like second-class citizens. Lithgow should have been a priority from the start. We should have been a focus. I would like to especially mention Andrew G, Clare member, who wrote to the New South Wales Premier on behalf of Lithgow residents and has always treated me with professional courtesy. I would like to thank the staff, especially for doing the job that they needed to do, but I just wanted to make that point, that Lithgow should never be an afterthought. We should be a priority.
Just going back to the doctors, I think that it can't just be noted that one doctor or several doctors. I think that if they're not in the media, you know, it doesn't necessarily. I know that every single clinic and every single pharmacy in Lithgow that's been able to deliver vaccines has done very, very well, and they all need to be congratulated, not just a couple.
No, I fully agree with you, but some have gone on and over and beyond what has been.
I believe they all have, Mayor Thompson.
Yeah. Councillor Smith.
I'd just like a question for Mr Edgecombe, and he doesn't have to, I know the answer will be that no doubt Pete Watson will have this on the airways about the clinic on Wednesday, tomorrow on the radio. Thanks, John. And also I would like to thank, I rang the Mayor up on many occasions and the Deputy Mayor and said, hey guys, how come we're not on Prime? How come we're not on Win? How come our numbers, we've got cases here, it's not in the media. The Mayor told me he got on New South Wales Health and he pushed it and pushed it and pushed it, and I'd like to thank you for that, Mayor. That we finally got the recognition that our little our area does exist. Thank you.
I'll move that, thank you.
Second.
Oh, some of these bridges are obviously in dire needs of repair, and I'd also like to see if they could possibly put another point on the recommendation, and that is the two bridges at Sodwalls are in dire straight situations. One is absolutely atrocious. I drove out the other day. I've had 9 complaints about those bridges, which I have spoken to.
Councillor, that's outside this report. I'm sorry, but...
No worries at all.
Yeah.
I'm actually happy
that.
to listen to what Councillor Statham's got to say.
It just doesn't
It's not relevant to the paper.
It can certainly come up later, and she can add it, or she can bring it in as a notice of motion, but it's got nothing to do with the 3 bridges down at... it's got nothing to do with the 3 bridges down at Capity.
They're also not council assets.
Mr Mayor, the administration will reach out to Councillor Statham and understand the issue and deal with it.
Yes. Are you going to...
Councillor Statham.
Mayor Thompson, look, I think this is it's a good report. The 3 bridges, we went down there, yourself and Councillor Nick Andrew last week. they're pretty rough bridges. I think what is being proposed will also be a better outcome for future fire incidents in the valley. What I would like is from Mr Edgecombe, if I could, Mayor Thompson, as an explanation to how we're going to communicate with the community to minimise the disruption, because I know there are miners living down in Glen Davis who have to travel up, and if the road is closed for long periods of time, they'll be going up round Candos and going a hell of a long way out of their way to get to work or to go anywhere. So if we could, Mayor Thompson, if Mr Edgecombe could just explain the communication process and the sort of ideas or thinking behind how we will minimise disruption on the community. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Thompson, the communication plans form a critical part of all of our projects, doesn't matter how big or small they are. But in this instance, you're correct, there is going to be a significant impact while the bridges are being put together. So the first, with respect to how we're going to communicate with the community, we're already in the process of arranging for a number of VMS boards to be placed in the immediate vicinity of the bridges. We're going to be speaking with the progress associations, which operate out of the area as well. We'll be communicating through the LEMC. There'll be media releases. There'll be opportunities for the community to speak with us regarding any of their concerns, and we can, allay those as the opportunities arise. The second one, about the actual disruption caused by the bridges, a key part of the tender that's been recently opened for public exhibition relates to opportunities for innovation or new ways of maintaining access. If there's any opportunities for minor detours around the bridges by installing temporary bridges to, left or right of them, those opportunities absolutely will be explored, because every way, if there's any avenues we can minimise disruption and minimise detours, we will take those as a priority.
Thank you.
Mayor, while Mr Edgecombe's there, I've got similar questions to Councillor Ring. There's 3 bridges to be done. If I'm reading the report right, there's the one nearest to the Early Mine seems that there won't be an issue of egress and exit and entry. So are we going to do the bridges one at a time? I would have thought that would be less. We certainly shouldn't do the 3 at the one time, because we'd be trying to get around the whole 3. What's the process for that? The one near Airlie looks like it can be done without too much disruption. People can still come and go. It's the other 2 that the issue is with. I'm just wondering what the process. We do the easy one first, or what was raised with, as you recall, Mayor, as well, what was raised with us down Glen Davis, council needs to talk to the locals about opportunities for bypassing these bridges as well. But my main question to Mr Edgecombe is that will we do them one at a time, so we try and not have them all down at the one time? Or what will the process be?
So that ultimately depends on a number of different factors. Procurement of the actual bridges will be the first one. How quickly can we get them? Because they will be modular and precast. So what's the availability of the systems once they're purchased? The second will be contractor availability. If they have the resources and can feasibly do them all at once, it would be in their best interest from a cost perspective to do them or concurrently, so that they minimise their own cost, the amount of time they've got to spend on site. Every available opportunity to minimise community delays, if we can do them all at the same time, we will, if the option is available to us, because that will minimise delay. Ultimately, we need to wait for the contractors to come back to us, the potential contractors. We have in their tender responses to tell us how they can program and schedule the works. We will be putting to all successful contractors, or all potential contractors, that the priority is to mitigate disruption wherever possible.
Yeah, the comment, the reason I made it, Mayor, is if we do the 3 bridges at once, doesn't matter if we can get around 1 or 2, there's no way in or out.
Yeah.
That's the issue. You really need, if you're doing the 3 at once, we need to have in and out around every single third every single bridge. Otherwise, it doesn't make any difference.
There may be-
It'll be closed to
There
that traffic.
There will likely be one bridge at least. I think Crown Creek may be very difficult to get around. In that instance, there will need to be a detour through Rylstone. However, we will make every effort to mitigate this disruption and consult and communicate with the residents.
Thank you.
As it's been discussed, I think it's very important to communicate with the residents and keep them up to date so that they are aware of all the time delays, and I think this is most important, that they are communicated with regularly.
And I take on board, Councillor Statham, what you said about the sodwall bridges, and we'll see if we can get some funding to do those in the future.
Thank you.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Yes, water security is very important to the Lithgow LGA. I think it's something that previous councils have been very good at ensuring. I only have a question or two. I just need to understand, what is the staff's understanding of the Clarence coal mine's life? Like, do we know when that will cease? Because I want to know, what are the plans after this date for water security? We need to constantly think about water security. The councils in the past have been very good at it, and you should be acknowledged for that, you know, council previous, but we need to keep thinking about the future in regards to water security. We need to make sure that we're in a good position going forward to many years to come for our future generations.
Thank you. So for the short term and the long term, I suppose more asking about the long term, the life of the Clarence mine, I can't say to you at the moment. I'm not too sure as to it. Yep. Take that on notice to provide that back, that's fine. As a long-term solution for the water, Centennial would be, as part of this project, at the cessation of mining and after rehabilitation, would provide council with the water access licences to be able to extract water through bores and the like on the site. So we would still have continuous supply to our treatment plants. As long as they
Until the water stops flowing. Yeah. Until the water stops flowing. Yeah.
Yeah, as part of our IWCM process as well, the integrated water cycle management, we're doing a resourcing study for this. So as part of that, we're looking at recharge rates throughout the Clarence area and the rest of the LGA to look at how quickly it refills, what the longevity is, the lifetime of that water source.
Mayor? Yeah, Mayor, look, the report's about the public-private partnership assessment, and it's about satisfying certainly the Office of Local Government and satisfying our own governance principles. I understand the project's something like $30 million, so this is about making sure we do everything right when we partner with a public or private institution in coming together. So I'm happy to support the process as it stands.
Thank you. Any other commentary, councillors? Councillor Goodsall?
Yeah, Mayor Thompson, I've got a question for through you to Mr. Trapp as well. What impact will this have on Farmers Creek Dam when that water's deviated away from there?
So as part of the project, through the construction of it, we'll still utilise Farmers Creek Dam as a supply. The dam will be able to still be refilled through our own processes and through deviation through the pipeline.
Actually, the water that will be going to Willerowang will be the water that would be going down the Wollongambie at the moment.
No, but can we put the heater on? I'm cold.
10.5, Farmers Bridge flood impact assessment. Sorry, I don't know if we took a vote on that. I shall put that, councillors. Carried unanimous. Thank you, Mr General Manager. Okay. Farmers Creek Bridge flood impact assessment. Somebody like to move?
Sure.
Have a second.
Move Councillor Goodsall, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Goodsall.
Yeah, we've been out to the community to announce that this bridge was going to be removed and replaced with a much better version. We've had a comprehensive information session on it, and it's from what I can see, it's about a costly $80,000 remediation process, which is disappointing. But when we do replace this bridge with a very well thought out, structurally sound, non-flooding bridge, it will be much better for the community. I know some comments in the community that the bridge is missed. Already that Farmers Creek shared pathway is incredibly popular. You go down to the Glenmire or round the back of Marjorie Jackson or Wattsford Oval, even out to the dump. People park their cars at the dump and they walk through. So people are missing that. Plus it's a beautiful, beautiful aesthetic out there at Burton Street. It really looked great with the big parklands and the trickling water, but it'll be much safer this way.
I'm saddened that it's an expensive learning curve, but thank God it's going to be fixed for the residents out there. And the sooner it's back in place, the better, and we can move on.
Thank you. Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, look, it is an expensive learning curve, but there's no one in this room that's never made a mistake. We've all made mistakes at work. But what's important is what is stated on page 34, and that is project management improvement. This council has run its project management systems poorly. That is now being improved. To me, that is a bloody great outcome for this community and this council. Took ages to get all the capital works projects tabled into the operations committee, and they all should go there. And we should have a proper project management organisation or organisational team to oversight these projects. They can be complex, anything can happen, and it's no disrespect to the staff that were running it, but when you've got a lot of other projects running at the same time, you can miss something. And I had a good look at the technical report, the flood report from the engineer. I couldn't make head and tail of it. I've done over $15 million worth of project management and building works, and I have assisted residents with DAs in relation to the flood planning matters, and I really appreciate the fact that we got a summary in plain English from the council. That was very useful, and that's very much appreciated. It makes sense. And when you look at the original, the report from the engineer, flood management engineer, the drawings were an A1 size sheets. To really make sense of it and have a good read of it, you really need them printed out. They're quite large sheets. So the plain English version is good, and hopefully we'll see more of that coming in the future, particularly if they're highly technical reports. Thank you.
Councillor Leslie.
Yes, Mayor Thompson. I'm concerned about the self-congratulatory tone of this particular report. I refer to two comments on page 34. One, the need to modify Farmers Creek Bridge is regretted. Fair enough. This is substantially a consequence of an approval that preceded the current level of understanding of flood behaviours in the locality. Well, no, that's not right. The problem was that someone, council staff or contractors, undefined in this report, put 70 centimetre girders in the creek bed below the level of surrounding park, and no one noticed. It's worth noting that the bridge over the State Mine Creek near Guy Street is not at park level, but rises on both sides, so that the footpath over the creek is well beyond the level of any flood. Yet the catchment of this creek is many times smaller than the catchment for Farmers Creek. The other comment is the next one down, is council has been responsible, probably means responsive, in moving to address the situation as a matter of urgency once the issue was confirmed. Again, no. It took 6 months and many emails from local residents, one in particular, for action to be taken. It was obvious from the very beginning that the bridge was flawed. I remember the flood that went down Gender's Mine. So do older residents who live nearby. 50-year floods don't occur like clockwork. They occur when they occur. Therefore, the 6 months wasted was a 1% chance that that 50-year flood could have occurred within that 6 months. I feel particularly sorry for Matthew Johnson, the author of this report. He's not an engineer. He would not have overseen the plans, and he would not have been responsible for supervising the work. I think it's very poor form that he was required to prepare this report. Free advice for the council management. When things go wrong, such as the 12,000 litre leak at the Wallarawang sewage treatment plant, and here at Farmers Creek, own up immediately. It's always better in the long run. I've got an amendment that I want to move, and that is that we have at points 4, 5 and 6, at point 4, that we note the further expenditure to date, not mentioned in the report, of $3,483 for the removal of the Burton Street Bridge and temporary on-sign signage. And 5, we got that report today, but it's not in the report, and I think the public need to know this. Point 5, that a further report be brought back to council detailing all costs when the bridge is replaced. I assume that we'll have to pay for the cranes, etc., bringing them back, and we need to know that further report at that time. And 6, that the original consulting engineers report received on the 25th of August 2021 be released.
Has Councillor Leslie got a seconder for his amendment? Seconded, Councillor Coleman.
Did. I'm happy to have all of those points except the last one. I mean,
So at the moment it's an amendment. So you're not going to second the amendment because you don't want the last one. So therefore, Councillor Coleman.
No, I'll just read them again, but I'm happy otherwise. That
Well, I think we've got them. It's just a matter of right. So do you want to speak to the amendment, Councillor Coleman?
I don't want to speak to the amendment, but I do want to speak anyway. So do I do it now or?
Speak to your second of the amendment.
Yeah, okay. So look, the report's actually given me questions to ask. The first question I have, and hopefully that the amendment that Councillor Leslie will rectify that, is why wasn't the flooding considered alongside the review of the environmental factor assessment back in 2018? So that's my first question. And my second question is, due to the modification to the creek, I understand that a Part 5 environmental impact assessment will be needed. My second question is, was a Part 5 completed for the initial construction? So I don't know whether or not those questions will be covered in the amendment, but I still want to put them on record anyway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report details that the flooding impact wasn't part of the REF, the review of environmental factors. We discovered that late, and it's regrettable that the report says. It should have been considered. That goes without saying. And your second question, Councillor Coleman? what was required, as we understood it when we received the project, was an REF was required, review of environmental factors, the flooding aspects. It considered a whole deal of other environmental factors, not the flooding.
May I ask a question, please, Mayor Thompson?
I just want to say, before Councillor Thatcher goes in, look, I understand that it is going to cost over $75,000 in total for the redesign. It is good that the General Manager has reviewed the project management process and hopes to move forward into the future we won't have these problems, but I still think that we need...
Thank you. I think we still need further information on this matter. So thanks, Rob.
What sort of information are you looking for?
The amendment. I support the amendment.
Mayor, just
Does anybody want to speak against the amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to, Mayor Thompson.
Well, could I get a clarification? I'm keen to move a second amendment, but I understand the meeting procedure, we've got to deal with this one first.
Deal with this one first, yes.
From my understanding of what Councillor Leslie said, the original engineer's report that he's asking was for the 28th of August. I'm assuming that's the draft report the council had received, which did not get handed out when he requested it. I don't see any benefit. We've got the final report. There's no need to go and look at a draft report. That's just pointless. So no, I won't be if that point was dropped, I'd be happy to support it, but I can't support it with point 6.
Just on that, Mr. Mayor, we've got the council's interpretation of the report. I'd like to see the report. I mean, I understand there's an interpretation. If you don't want to read the report, don't read it. But I'd like to read the original report.
We have the original report in the papers for this council meeting. It's there.
Mr. McGrath, some clarification, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The original report was issued to council as a draft and invited comment from council officers. And we did discover when we went through that report that there were some errors and they were subsequently corrected. And the report that's gone with the business paper tonight is the report that came through from Lyle and Associates on the 21st of September with all those corrections included in it.
So could I get some clarification as what Mr. McGrath is saying is that the original report being requested by Councillor Leslie is available?
Is it...
We've got it, yeah, we've got it, but it's not accurate.
Mayor, can I get some clarification off yourself or the General Manager? Isn't Councillor Leslie entitled to the report? You know, I don't want to see the report, but if another councillor wants to read it, then I think they're entitled to read it. I don't, but
Mr. General Manager.
I don't think we should have to go through a formal formal motion to have that right.
Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I have no problems with the councillors seeing the report, but it's a draft report and you'll be unsurprised to know that every single day we deal with draft matters and our professionals deal with those and finalise them and bring the final report. But if the council wants to see a draft report which has errors in it, we can provide it. But in a most transparent way, in fact on the business paper, the final report prepared by the experts inside and outside the organisation is available, and to assist the councillors and the public and the residents adjacent to this bridge, a plain language version has also been provided.
Councillors, if you do recall, the DCP for the Lithgow Valley estate was certainly only a draft report, and it couldn't be finalised as a final report. So I'm inclined to agree with the General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, what I'm reading from that is we don't really need a point 6 that Councillor Leslie can go to the council and have a look at that report at any time.
Yeah.
That's correct.
True.
I may be able to go and read it as a councillor, but that doesn't mean that the citizens of Lithgow can read it.
The citizens of Lithgow can't be getting a draft report.
Why not?
Of course.
That's what I'm asking. I'm asking for the original. No, I'm not asking for the draft report. I'm asking for the original engineers consulting, the original consulting engineers report be released. The one that came to council, the one that they wrote and sent to council.
I
And I don't want to read the council's
I don't know if
version of
I'm
it.
hearing wrongly from Mr McGrath, but in what I've just heard from him, it was a draft report. Was it a draft report or not a draft report?
It was a draft report, it had a watermark across it, or draft report for comment.
That's finalised for me.
Then
It's a draft report.
Then we need to read the report that was reissued by Lyle Associates, or Lyle, whatever they are, and sent back. If you sent it back to Lyle and said, these are wrong, we need another report, let's get that report. That's the
one we've got.
That's we got it.
That's the one dated 21st of September. That's the final report.
There we go. As far as I'm concerned, that's good enough for me. It's a final report. You don't act on draft reports. Any other commentary on the amendment? Can I see what the amendment is now then? It's got 6 points.
No, we're taking away one, aren't we?
Well, I can't until they deal with. Yeah, my amendment, Mayor, is that the current recommendation, points 1, 2 and 3, but an added 2 points. Number 4, that the further expenditure of the 3,483 be noted, and number 5, the a further report of all costs be provided to council once it's all finalised.
That'd be the second.
No, it's not just what you did.
No, I just seconded Joe. Beat your mate. Mayor Thompson, I'm fine with that. If council has obviously been prepared to drop 0.6, I would have voted for it. So I'm more than happy.
Just for clarification before it puts Mayor, I don't want to go into who did what or whatever. I just want to make the point again that we are in a fairly tight financial environment in council, and we need to be careful with all of these matters. We can't afford these types of issues coming up. You know, I'm out there, the same as every other councillor, telling people that we can't do X, Y, Z because we've got to watch our pennies, and we've got to be tight, and we've got to be careful. Equally, we've got to be careful with what we do. And I'm not meaning that in critical, I'm simply saying we need to be careful.
Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to say that I'm very pleased with, and I agree with Councillor Ring on the fact that the General Manager has appointed a management team to oversee these jobs. I know this is not the only project we've had issues with. We've had issues with the one out at Wang and the disabled fishing ramp. Mr McGrath's handled that very, very well, but it's good to see that they've got this team together to say, hang on guys, we'll get it right from the start.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Mayor Thompson, this is a strategy that this council, the existing council, would not normally deal with. We would have been voted in, let out, retired, whatever. This strategy is probably the most important communication document we have with our community. It allows us to find out what the values of the community are, what they see as priorities. And I was very glad to see in this document that it talks about the special rate variation. Not just we need one at 5% or we need one at greater, but if we don't do it, then we have to reduce services. And if the community comes back and they want us to reduce services, well, so be it. We reduce services. But this is the opportunity where we need people to have direct input into the future of council. And this is a document should that be guiding the next council for the next 2.5 years, and then that will occur again, and the cycle will just keep going. But this is the opportunity for the community to have their say. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, my first response to this in reading it was why it just couldn't be put in the hands of the new council. It can't. We haven't got the time. And when one looks at the top of page 36, in summary, it explains in some detail why we've got to move on this now. And page 37 has some important points. And I make the point to council, this is obtaining the community's input to a pathway to financial sustainability to secure the future of the LGA. And there are options. There are options to be discussed. Improved service levels maintained, some reduced service level, etc., etc. Options to be discussed fully with our community. And it goes on further down the bottom of page 37, some important points, and I quote, "It is important to note, however, that this is a start point for the conversation only and does not represent a decision to apply for approval for such an option. And further, it is good governance, financially responsible and effective local government to engage with the community about the above matters to ensure that the city and the council are sustainable into the future." As I said, I thought we'd go to the next council, but there's no time. The timeline's pretty tight. The next, if the election goes ahead in December, you've virtually got that Christmas period, January, and then you're really into 2022, where some hard decisions before the budget may need to be made. And I would think that for the benefit of the new council, at least they'll have some idea of what our community's thinking before they get to have to make that decision.
Councillors, any other commentary? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Look, I understand that the community engagement strategy is going to the public. Is that correct?
It is.
However, it mentions the SRV, but it's not explained. All I see is SRV, SRV, SRV. The public needs to understand what SRV means in layman terms.
Special rate variation.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that. Is it going to say exactly what that means when it goes to the public?
What, special rate variation?
Yeah.
I certainly would think so.
Because it's just an acronym at the moment, and people don't read in acronyms.
It's in the attachments.
Yeah, but no one reads they don't. But when it goes to the public,
Mr. McGrath.
But that's council all the time. They put in acronyms.
Okay,
and
Councillor
my
Leslie.
question
Councillor
is,
Leslie.
I've got the floor. The
complained about
question
this in
is,
the
all
past.
I want to know, when it goes to the public, instead of SRV, will it state very clearly that it's special rate variation? That's all I want to know.
Mr. McGrath.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think that's a valid point. When we're dealing with these things day in, day out, often you slip into acronyms. But SRV, special rate variation, that can be expanded in the final version, as can any other issues that arise that we need to clarify or remove ambiguity. More than happy to have those comments.
Thank you, that's appreciated. The other comment I'd like to make is the public also needs to understand how the money will be spent when it comes back, and how it will be reported to the community. I know that this is going to be open to consultation, but we need to ensure that the community is walked through this every step of the way.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any other councillors to this? Councillor Ringrider, reply.
Yes, Mayor Thompson, in the attachments, the community strategy on page 30, it actually states what is a special rate variation, and it actually goes into detail on explaining it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I shall put that then, councillors. Those against? Nobody against? You're against, Councillor Leslie? Yeah, Councillor Leslie.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Move Councillor Goodsall, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Goodsall.
Mr Johnson would have indeed been pleased to write this report. What an amazing asset for our community. I live quite close by, and the engagement with our young adults, like there's our families with our little kids, but our young adults, our 10 to 14-year-olds is phenomenal, and I know a lot of them through my former employment. I often see them passing by my house in the morning and they're not wrapping up until late in the afternoon. A couple of questions I've got, but other than that, it's a great example of local government and state government working together for a great outcome for our community. The questions I do have is, when is the car park commencing? Are the barbecues operational? And how many bins are there?
Those three questions, Mr McGrath.
Sorry, Mr McGrath.
First and the last one, Mr. Mayor.
The car park.
Car park?
Yeah.
The bins? Barbecues.
And the what, sorry?
Barbecues.
Oh, barbecues.
Oh, sorry, that's more to do with your venture playground barbecues.
Okay, specifically...
Are they operational? Can people are meeting and gathering outside in public places now? Are they actually switched?
That's probably a question for Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson.
That's fine.
We'll take those on notice, Councillor.
No worries.
Yeah. We've got the three of them.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I've had the luxury of taking my grandkids out this facility. I have one issue with it. The issue is I struggle, and I don't know how you police this, when you get the bigger teenagers on one side, on the lower side of the steeper rides, and how you'll overcome this, I can't work it out, because on the smaller part of it, the little ones are getting trampled on. It could lead to a drama, but I don't know whether we have some form of signage, beware of where you go, or something like that. Maybe that's an issue, Jono, but I don't know. I noticed that there was bigger kids on bikes, skateboards, and some of the little kids were nearly getting trampled on. You know, it could be an issue. Not so much, the parents need to take a good lead on this too, you know, but I don't know whether some sort of signage can be put in place.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We've recently done an audit on the signage, being a brand new facility, and I think we can improve it. But the important thing to recognise with that facility is that it's an unsupervised facility, unlike, say, an aquatic centre where council staff supervise it. So we probably need to highlight for parents that they need to actually take an active role in making sure that their children are safe, and that people are following the rules. So everyone's supposed to go in a clockwise direction, for example. But really, it's up to parents and users to do the right thing. We can improve on the signage, but we can't be there supervising. Yeah.
I totally understand it. Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, before Mr McGrath sits down, if I could have a question for him. There's been a lot of commentary on Facebook about inappropriate rubbish being dumped there and sort of antisocial behaviour. It's very hard to sort of police that, but moving forward, how will we deal with those sort of issues?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of the comments on Facebook, but I guess what we would ask the community to do is to actually tell us, using our customer request system. That way we can chase them up. Mr. Edgecombe's staff can chase those issues up if it's to do with inappropriate items being left behind or garbage being left behind. But that's the best and most efficient way to deal with those issues, is to get the complaints from the public directly to our customer request system.
Thank you, Mr McGrath.
Again, before you sit down, through you, Mr. Mayor, has there been any reports of any injuries out there at all?
Anecdotally, Mr. Mayor, we've heard of a broken arm or wrist quite early in the piece. But equally, I think when the Adventure Playground opened, we had some broken bones and injuries when that occurred. I think when a new facility's open like that, this is just my personal opinion, people don't realise exactly how to use the facility properly. And equally, supervision needs to be, as I said earlier, needs to be at a fairly high level for younger children.
That might lead me into a question that I had. Is there an opportunity, soon we're coming out of COVID, into possibly the Christmas holiday period, of getting maybe a professional pump rider down there to show the kids how to ride on that pump track, and maybe try and drum up some maybe tourism stuff for the area?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think the report touches on it slightly, but what we would like to do, what we would have done had we been allowed to, without the restrictions, is we would have had made a much more public and professional opening event, which would have included cyclists who actually know how to use a pump track, and more of an education process. But as soon as restrictions are eased, we plan on running or hosting events, and hopefully incorporated into those events there'll be an education element.
Council did do that when we opened the skate park.
Yes.
We did, yeah.
That's right.
Okay, any other commentary, councillors?
Oh, Mayor Thompson, just to say congratulations to the staff that helped this along. It's a great project. You've heard lots of positive comments about it. It'll be a great project in future to try and get one out at Portland and Wallerawang on a smaller scale. And I think getting somebody there to instruct people, as you've just said, at the skate park, it was a great day. Had some of the best in New South Wales give demonstrations, and it'd be a nice idea to do that after COVID finishes here at the pump track.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Goodsall, right to reply.
Yeah, there's been lots of things tossed around tonight, but I think any new experience you put in our community, it doesn't matter where it is or what level of families you get visited, there's going to be a few hiccups. There's going to be the odd occasion where people are tossing rubbish around and being inappropriate, but by and large, you put something in of that quality and you get the respect of the people that are using it. So, you know, there might be a bucket load of people in our community that are vulnerable, they're hurting, that they possibly could be up to other sort of mischief had that track not been there, and they take a lot of pride in it, and I've seen some comments on Facebook where the kids are actually picking up. So, you know, you put something there of that quality and people will respect it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Goodsall. That was the right to reply, councillors. I shall put that. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Consultation with local Indigenous representatives.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Move Councillor Goodsall, seconded Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Goodsall.
This is another lovely report. It's improving consultation and communication with our First Nations people and building a platform where issues can be addressed. The highlight for me is them working as they've been invited as a united group, and they'll obviously overall enhance the overall outcomes for our vulnerable people and or not vulnerable. The EA had a great plan for how to move in the community with our Indigenous moving forward, and they should be congratulated as well as our staff. The working group has been a long time in coming, and seeing the initial work, the 8 projects that are highlighted here underway, all involved need to be congratulated. Well done to Mr McGrath and his team for persisting with this. And I've got no doubt that this comes from initial conversations with Bridget Cameron and Bridie Zors over 6 months ago when they presented to Council, and the overwhelming support we gave them for the Uluru Statement of the Heart. Good job.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. Great initiative again by Mr McGrath to just continue on with trying to get them to get all the Indigenous groups and people in our area to come together, and it's not easy. This will only be a benefit for our community and a benefit for our Aboriginal people, and yeah, I can only see good things happening with this committee.
Look, I concur. This is long overdue for this community. I believe the consultation group goes back to a motion from Councillor Goodwin in relation to the management of Blackfellas Hands Cave. I can't remember the Indigenous name for it, but there are issues out there getting people together and talking. By utilising staff in professional roles, I think that will help to bring the individual groups together. I think it's very important. This is not a short trip to get this resolved. There are a lot of long-standing issues within our Indigenous community. There are a lot of very strong personalities, and it will take time and patience to get a good, positive outcome. But this is the first step.
Mayor Thompson, yes, I think it's a great way to see inclusiveness happening with several different organisations in Lithgow and surrounding. It is a gradual thing, it's not going to happen overnight, but just to see some small steps taken for inclusiveness, and particularly with groups that would prefer not to be in the same room at the same time, I think gradually that would be great if we could see them all together doing something great for our community.
Just one more question, Mr. Mayor, and I've spoken to Mr. McGrath about this prior to the meeting, but if any Aboriginal person on council who works in council maybe could be invited onto that working group to assist in establishing this committee as well. And I've spoken to Mr. McGrath about that.
Mayor, just a question. It's sort of on the report as well, but Councillor Ring has reminded me of something in mentioning Blackfellas Hands. Where are we up to with the money that was funded for that in relation to that work? Has it gone anywhere? It was very important, of course. Start winning points.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been speaking with the Indigenous group that are managing that project. We've spoken on a number of different occasions. I've been out site personally and walked the entire length of the project with them, spoken to them about the full scope of it. So they've got our full support. We're doing everything we can to assist. We've provided commitments to them to assist in procurement if we can, and traffic control and all those sorts of things. So and that work is also being fed through to the Bushfire Management Committee, because it is a registered fire trail, so it assists that group as well, and it's our strategic objective of having more resilient assets in the event that another bushfire does, or when another bushfire comes through our LGA. So the works are progressing, they've commenced, and they're going along very, very well, and the group out there is proud of what they're doing, and we're very happy with it also.
Is CCTV part of this?
CCTV is a separate project. That's a project entirely managed and at the behest of council. We made an application for nearly $350,000 recently under a Safer Communities grant to put CCTV and gates and all sorts of stuff across the LGA, across all of our more popular sites, including Blackfellas Hands, but not limited to that. So we've also got Hassans Walls Reserve, Blast Furnace, all those other sites throughout the LGA, our skate parks, playgrounds, you name it. There's about 40 odd sites that we've identified.
I'm good, thank you, Mayor Thompson. I forgot what item we're on.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Happy to second.
Yeah, very briefly, the report's quite clear. I just make the point again, the latest case numbers for the LGA, they're the real important numbers now in relation to restrictions, so it's something we've got to keep drilling down on as hard as we can.
There's quite a percentage of people in our community that don't have smartphones or internet. What are we doing for those people? Is there any common source of information? Is it going to, besides on the local radio, is it going to newspapers, Village Voice, Mercury?
As you realise, Councillor Goodsall, we've only got 1 day a week now as far as the Mercury's concerned.
But I understand 2LT is pretty is putting the figures out as soon as they can get them.
They can. lots of times it goes on 2LT Facebook page as well, so it's not necessarily always comes over the radio. So I don't know, Councillor Goodsall, how we get that information out to people that haven't got any radio or smartphones or newspapers anymore. Any other commentary, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. Look, the challenge during the COVID-19 pandemic is that the information is updated at a rapid rate, and we do have a 24-hour news cycle. Our residents feel quite anxious about not having up-to-date current information, so I acknowledge, that it is difficult. I think that once a week is great as a retrospective wrap-up, but that's all it's basically for. It's only once a week is a retrospective wrap-up, and that's great, but we need to get information out as soon as possible and more frequently.
Mayor Thompson?
Mr. Mayor, just by way of clarification, though, the information is updated as soon as any updates come in, but once a week there's a roundup summary. But it's quite dynamic, and it leads people, because the information is changing so quickly, it leads them to a number of websites. So it is always contemporary.
Mr Mayor, could I please speak?
Yes.
2LT, Radio 2LT every morning and probably 4 times during the day give a report update. The General Manager keeps us updated, which I think is important. And I think the most important thing, a lot of our elderly people that wouldn't have a smartphone and maybe not do Facebook or even watch the TV perhaps, they listen to 2LT, a lot of them. So I think Peter Watson and the team are doing a wonderful job at keeping us up to date.
Yeah, they certainly are. Well, as good a job as they can possibly do. Yeah. Okay, any other commentary? Councillor McAndrew, right a reply? Okay, I shall put that, councillors. Those in favour? Okay, carried unanimous. We move to payment of tax equivalents. Somebody like to move recommendations on the bottom of page 4?
Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Moved Councillor Ring, seconded Councillor Goodsall.
Look, I think it's good we're in a position where we've met the appropriate requirements and we can transfer those funds into our general funds. And as the report says, it will help us to increase our working capital. Long term, this will be a good outcome for this council moving towards financial sustainability.
Councillor Goodsall. Any commentary, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
I just have a question, Mayor Thompson. What impact will this have on the sewerage fund in regards to maintenance and sewerage infrastructure? Was there going to be an issue there, considering we're moving money from that into the general fund? Will that leave the sewer fund short?
Mr Gurney.
If we have emergencies that need to be catered to?
Through you, Mr Mayor. It will not have any impact on the sewer fund's capacity, short or long term. There is adequate funds in the reserve for both recurrent maintenance and longer term asset renewal in the sewer fund reserve.
Thank you.
Any other commentary? Councillor Ring, right a reply?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to say, in the report, it does talk about that our water and sewer funds are commercial businesses, but they're not subject to federal income tax. The money that's being transferred is the money that would have been paid in income tax and tax to the government. So we need in any of our operations to ensure that we're running them, that we can have that there, so the money can come back in the council to benefit the community. Thank you. Happy to move it, Mayor Thompson.
Happy to second it, Mayor Thompson.
A lot of the changes that have been proposed by the government to how the risk management internal audit committees works to our advantage. The government in this instance has listened to suggestions and criticisms from councils across the state. The one thing that they did put in, they do not want councillors as voting members or mayors as voting members on ARIC, and that's unacceptable. As one of our members of this committee said, they obviously lack an understanding of governance within the local government sector. It is the role of councils to provide a governance oversight, not for an independent committee. Councillors and the mayor need to have voting rights on that committee and need to make it relevant. So I'm very glad to see that we're actually moving to draft a response that councillor members, including the mayors, are permitted to be voting committee members. Otherwise, I don't see the point of these committees.
I think it's a very comprehensive report and in detail, and I agree with Councillor Ring. There are some things that I thought should have been changed and have been changed, so I think it's quite a progressive report.
Any commentary, councillors? Councillor Ring, right to reply?
No, put it to the vote.
I shall put it to the vote then. Those in favour? Declare that carried. In update on internal policy, reporting policy.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Sorry, who moved that?
Councillor Goodsell and seconded by Councillor Canberra.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsell.
That's pretty straightforward, Mr Mayor.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, Mayor, and it's recommended that it be adopted and implemented immediately.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Move Councillor Ring. Who seconded it? Sorry, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Ring.
It's a straightforward report and it's consistent with the way this council's been working towards managing its assets. So I'm more than happy for it to go through.
Councillor McAndrew.
No comment, Mayor.
We shall put that, councillors. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I would just wanted to highlight the fact that it's lovely to see that the asset management system will be complete and operational by the end of September 2021.
Thank you.
Something we've all been waiting for.
True. Any other commentary, councillors? I apologise. Shall put that to the vote then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Minutes of Operations Committee meeting.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Move Councillor McAndrew. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor McAndrew?
No, Mayor, the minutes are there. The commentary talks about the matters that were discussed. It's there for councillors to have a look at. Nothing to add.
Councillor Smith?
I'd just like to say it's very pleasing, and I said this to the Operations Committee, that the standard of the cleaning within our local facilities and local government area has been very, very good.
Thank you. Councillors, any commentary?
Yes, Mayor Thompson, just to congratulate the staff that are involved with councillor requests. You put in requests and you get very quick replies and very prompt, so I think that's a great idea to keep councillors up to date with what's going on.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor McAndrew, right to reply? Okay, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Declare that carried unanimous. And minutes of the TAL Committee meeting.
Yeah, I'll move that way.
Move Councillor Goodwin.
Can I
Seconded
just-
Councillor Smith. Councillor Goodwin.
Part of the minutes, it's on page 4 of 8. It's got moved by Councillor Goodsell, and it's actually she wasn't at the meeting, I was. So if that can be changed. Yeah.
Why?
Other than that, no, the minutes are fine.
I have a question, if I may, Mayor Thompson. On page 5 of 8, it talks about in tasks that are being done. There was a request, and Councillor Goodwin raised it. I also had discussed it previously after public representations with Mr Edgecombe, about signage at Wickety War Road, particularly during heavy snowfall and heavy rain, because they get a hell of a lot of, we're getting a lot of Sydney people just drive down and they rip the road up. Yet in the report it says, this is 12 months later, we still haven't worked out wording for signage. I mean, I don't understand why it's taking so long to actually resolve this issue. If we could have an answer, please.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. I share your frustration, and the matter has been through the TALC committee on a number of different occasions. There are very specific requirements that must be met prior to installing signage which restricts access to any vehicle, and we're currently working through those with the TALC in conjunction with the police and in direct consultation with Transport for New South Wales. We're also looking to work directly with Transport for New South Wales, not just on Wickety Wall Road, but our other unsealed roads around the LGA, which under the current New South Wales speed zoning guidelines don't get posted for speed limits. We're looking to advocate for a change to that so that we can start improving the safety, in our view, on our local unsealed roads, because I feel that's important, and a lot of our residents share that view. So we are working within our constraints, but sometimes it is a sort of a bureaucratic, restricted process around what we can and can't install on roads.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe.
Mayor Thompson, if I may speak. Yes, the council to install 2 locality signs on the suburb boundary of Dark Corner Road, Dark Corner, to identify the suburb Dark Corner. That's been a long-awaited issue, so I'm glad that that's now been taken care of. So will the residents out there.
3 councillors. Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. I raised at last meeting about an issue at the Vale of Clwyd. I was hoping that it would have gone to this meeting, this TALC committee. Did it go? I went through to Mr Edgecombe. I mentioned it last meeting. I did send in representation to him. I didn't mention it at the last council meeting, but I can't see it here.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, what was that in reference to? Just
an issue I had at Vale of Clwyd. It was. I'll take it offline, Mayor. I'll speak to you after. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I've made it very clear that although I am a member of the committee, that I won't attend TALC committee meetings if Councillor Goodwin's attending. Not that I have a problem with Councillor Goodwin attending, but since Council only gets 1 vote, it would be inappropriate to have 2 councillors vying for the 1 vote. I mean, what if we have different opinions? So I checked if Councillor Goodwin is attending. I find out that he is, so I don't go. I note that my apology was not given. I felt that it should have been. I may not have given it specifically as such to the council's staff member, but as a consequence, I'll be voting against this motion.
Any other commentary? Right to reply, Councillor Goodwin? No. No. I shall put that then, councillors. Those in favour? And against? Minutes of Finance Committee meeting.
Happy to move.
Happy to second. Councillor Rees.
Look, I think it's a straightforward report. I don't think we need to talk to it. Thank you.
I'm the same, Mayor.
I'll move that, Mayor Thompson.
Happy to second.
It seems just a simple, straightforward report.
Put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Minutes of Economic Development Committee.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Cancel. I'd just like to say, in regards to the Seven Valleys discussion, I think it's a great concept. I think that Simon from the Visitor Centre had a bit to do with this. It's really good that someone's picked this up and run with it, and I hope it goes a long way, and I hope the new council really takes it on board and pushes this promotion.
Mayor Thompson, could I please speak? Yeah, sorry. Yes. The Seven Valley principle, I supported it the other night. I've been talking to 23 people over the weekend, not together. It was completely COVID friendly. None of them knew about it, and they're all horrified. So this is from somebody 24 that's going into her own business to people that have been in business now for 40 years, and a couple of elderly residents in their 80s that said they're proud to call Lithgow home. Now, one person from a school has brought to my attention, for instance, if that went ahead, that every school uniform would have to be changed. The signature, the embroidery on all the shirts for the sporting organisations. I think what we need...
I don't understand. Point of order.
Oh, lots of people. People don't know about it. We need to start a program on Facebook and a media release.
Well, if I may say, Mayor, if I don't mind, Councillor Statement, it says in there it's a discussion paper.
Absolutely it does.
And that's right, and
Yes.
it should be discussed.
Absolutely, it was discussed here the other night at great length, but I would like to know a little bit further on that discussion paper. I think we should have another information session on it, because people are asking me who thought of this, what committee has done this. I don't know what the answers are. I'm not saying I'm against it, I'm just saying that I don't know what the answers are to tell people.
But certainly wouldn't, Mr Mayor, have any impact on any school embroidery or logos? Nothing.
No.
Mayor Thompson, if I may.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time in the heritage tourism sector. I'm aware of a lot of people that are in the industry who support the Seven Valleys. We have a committee, a marketing committee, that have been pushing this, yet it was not run with by a staff. It wasn't run with by the staff. This is a good outcome for the community. It's a good outcome for the businesses. It's not a slide on Lithgow. It won't affect the schools. And Lithgow has grown over the time with the addition of lands from Rolleston, back to 72, Blaxland and Lithgow merging. This will help us give an identity to the Lithgow LGA, which isn't site-specific. Another concept, another idea. We try it. We see how it goes. Thank you.
We'll certainly go out to the community anyway, and we'll get submissions back for sure.
Yeah, I have an item, Mayor Thompson, if I may.
And I have one too.
If you're willing, Mayor Thompson, I'd like to raise the matter of proposed closure of fire and rescue stations in Lithgow and Portland. Yeah, I can, Mayor Thompson. There have been reports in various media, inclusive of the Blue Mountains Gazette, Central Coast News, Daily Telegraph, 9 News, reporting potential closure of 30 fire stations, fire and rescue, not RFS, in New South Wales. On that list is a Lithgow station and the Portland station. Now, there's not a lot of information available about what's being proposed. The award for the retained firefighters expired in February of this year. It is currently before the Industrial Relations Commission. What we've been told by one side is it's about cost and it's about safety, it's about not being able to recruit staff. Firefighting is a very arduous task, particularly when you're doing firefighting of houses. It's very strenuous. It requires a lot of physical strength. And there's two issues: budget constraints and if staff can't be contracted. So I have a motion that I'd like to put forward if you're willing, Mayor Thompson. I'd like to recommend that the administration organises a briefing for councillors with New South Wales Fire and Rescue to provide an update on the issues. I'm asking for it because at the moment it is an industrial dispute, or appears to be an industrial dispute. I think we need to get clarity on what it is. The sooner we get that, the sooner we can act as a council in an appropriate manner. My understanding is there's a safety issue with the amount of staff you've got to go to a fire. You don't send crews that don't have the adequate number of staff. That is a work health safety issue. We need to have a better understanding. So that's what I'd like to put forward.
Will's in motion to give us an update from the fire and rescue. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, but council wishes to resolve that way to reinforce that and have the informative council, that would be appropriate.
Well, can I say, Mayor, that yeah, I support that, but we need to get the workforce side as well. If what's being said by Councillor Ring is it's an issue between the workforce and management, then we need to get both sides of the story.
And can I please speak on this matter as well when we get a chance?
Means I have deemed it as urgent, so council's entitled to speak to it.
I believe it needs to be a bit stronger than that. We need to make representation to the state member in regards to this issue. Yes, it's with the Industrial Relations Commission and it will be there until October. This was brought to my attention last week. I have spoken to the acting fire captain of Lithgow. I have spoken to the captain in Portland and I have done research in regards to this. Look, we need an investment in our fire stations to ensure that Lithgow has a minimum of 6 men and Portland has a minimum of 4. And we don't need these stations closed. Yes, I agree. And they are under the threat of being taken offline. It will increase the response times, and that's the difference between saving properties and putting out the ambers, basically. The issue I really have with this is that Lithgow Fire Station is also what's called a hazardous fire station, which means that if a truck tips over on the highway with toxic fluid, the Lithgow station is specialised in dealing with that hazard. If it's taken offline, what happens to that? Like, it's just abomination to think that they would take Lithgow and Portland and put them offline. We need to be really firm on this and we need to be really strong on this. And the community is uproared, absolutely uproared about this issue.
Thank you.
Can I say something,
I do believe that we should send a letter off immediately to the member for Bathurst, showing our disappointment in what is being proposed, Councillor. But, I shall listen to the council and see what they want to put forward.
Mr Mayor, I don't know if this is, maybe it's a comment. I'm also in the retained fire brigade here in town, or out at Wallerawang. I was a retained firefighter here in town for about 15 years. I've been a retained firefighter at Wang now for 3 or 4 years. I understand the issues that are going on, and I understand that the tolling when we don't reach enough staff, and at times Lithgow don't reach enough staff to supply the full six people on duty at one time. It doesn't mean that the fire station will permanently close. They might take it offline for a certain period of time until they get the amount of staff required for that day. It means backfilling from other stations to backfill at Lithgow station for a short period of time. And that is where the controversy comes in, whether the fire department, I suppose, bosses or commanders want to pay for those people to come and stand by at Lithgow or Portland station for a period of time to make the numbers up, ready for an incident. And I think that's where the issue is. When we don't get enough staff, we apply for staff at Lithgow Fire Station. The staff that apply, some of them don't meet the medical or the physical requirements to become a firefighter, so they drop off. There are certain radius issues as well. You've got to live in a certain radius of the fire station to apply. So it is hard to get retained firefighters at the stations. There are some people that have been offline either on a medical sick or otherwise that aren't at the fire station. So that means that the fire station can run short for a period of time, for a long period of time as well. So it's certainly an industrial issue, and it's certainly an issue that that we need to bring up with the hierarchy of the fire brigade, and also, as Councillor McAndrew said, the firefighters themselves, either some of the industrial people that can come and talk to us in relation to what's going to happen on the ground with the firefighters as well. So, yeah, I believe that we definitely need a information session on this, and someone to come and speak to us as a matter of urgency.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may then, I understand you've deemed it urgent, and Councillor Ring has put forward, he's moved a motion. I'm happy to second that motion, but only on the basis that we don't only receive a briefing from New South Wales Fire and Rescue, but we receive a briefing from the representatives of the workforce.
Look, I'm more than happy for that. I was going to say that. But Fire Brigade Employee Union, we invite them as well. Yeah.
So would that be the captain of the Lithgow Fire Brigade, or?
I believe we've got union representatives either at the station or district-wide union representatives.
Well, they would be the ones to ask, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and probably briefing would have to be separate, I would have thought. So we can make sure we get, both sides.
If it's all right to the council, then I'll leave it to the General Manager to organise. Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
I know that I've spoken on this matter, but can I just point out that the most appropriate person to speak on this, because the local firefighters can't actually speak on this in regards to industrial matter, is the country sub-branch gentleman at Bathurst, and his name's Tim Anderson. He will be able to give you all the rundown in regards to the industrial relations issue. He should be invited, and I just wanted to make that point.
Okay. Thank you. Right, I shall put that then, councillors, to you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Leslie.
Councillor briefing sessions, again, we come back to it. There are 21,000 people in this local government area, and there are 9 councillors, and yet we have a councillor briefing session for 9 councillors. I just find this happens all the time. I mean, we're not the people who need to be spoken to. It's the community that has to be spoken to, and yet we have, I hate to use the word, secret council briefing sessions. You know, they're not, seriously. But none, okay, I'll withdraw it. Councillor briefing sessions of which the public are not allowed to attend. Councillor briefing sessions which do not have minutes. Councillor briefing session which the public aren't able to find out what's happened, because, you know, we're not allowed to say it because it's in closed committee. I don't care what, you can't use the word, but that's what's happening. It's all the time. And yet, and this is what we're going to do. At the end of it, what's going to happen? 9 people get a little bit more notice or something, but the community doesn't help. The community's not able to get involved. The community can't do it unless individual councillors get on Facebook or write their own letters or do something.
Councillor,
and you've just, it's just wrong all the time. You've got to have a process which allows people to deal with this.
I personally get a lot out of the council briefing sessions. I personally do. Whether you do or not, I don't know. But I certainly get a lot of information from council briefing sessions. And let me say, you can't have a meeting at the Union Theatre once a month. Crikey, that'd be absolutely ludicrous.
Look, this is public now. The public's listening to us to discuss this issue. People have, I don't think anyone said it's not important. And every councillor, after a briefing session, whatever, has got every opportunity to put a notice of motion in. There could be a notice of motion put in for the October meeting to deal specifically with this matter. If I'm not happy with the briefings I get from the fire service and or others, then, you know, I've got the option to put a notice of motion and have the debate in these chambers.
Yes, and this council voted to make sure that you couldn't put a notice of motion in the council meeting after the briefing session. No, you have to wait over a month five weeks normally before you can put a notice of motion in.
It's called urgent business.
That's what this council does all the time.
Mayor, if
you
I
have
may.
your councillor briefing sessions on the Monday before the council meeting, and that makes it impossible to put a notice of motion in for that following meeting.
If Councillor
That was
Leslie,
voted in by...
if Councillor Leslie is concerned about this matter now, he can put a notice of motion in tomorrow. It's in his hands.
Mayor, if I may say, surely our council management can put something on the council website saying that the council and the councillors strongly support that no closures go within our town brigades, and the council's working hard with the community to resolve this issue. Surely we can have some media release saying we're all behind this.
Look, we had a document here tonight about waste to energy. We had a council information session on that. Council voted unanimously tonight to reject
Just
it.
as well I anticipated that and put the notice of motion in before the briefing session.
Mayor Thompson, can I have my right to reply, please? Look, I'm a little bit amazed by this. This is a serious issue. But before we actually act on it, we actually have to understand what the truth is. And there's probably a bit of truth on both sides, and we need to have at least a majority opinion on where we go with it. And I'd rather have the information before shooting off a letter and playing party politics. And as for the briefings, well, I recall, I think the first time, Councillor, I recall the first 2 years when we had Mayor Leslie, we had briefings. Obviously they weren't secret because they were televised and we had minutes. I don't think so. I am sick of this bullshit game of playing secret. I can do better than that.
Can you withdraw?
I withdraw the comment. I'm sick of this fluff. It is annoying.
We did
the
not.
accusation.
We did
Councillor
not.
Leslie, this is the right reply.
Well, in that case, he should not be bringing in new information.
He's not bringing in...
I'm not. I'm responding to what you said, Councillor Leslie.
That's exactly what he's doing. He does it all the time.
Your
Every councillor does
fabrications.
this all the time. They bring in
Councillors,
new information in their speech in reply, which is totally inappropriate because it prevents councillors from commenting on it.
I'm replying and responding to what Councillor Leslie said, which is my right of reply. That is what the right of reply is, to respond to the items that have been raised by councillors.
Exactly.
We have briefings. You can't have 20,000 people sitting on. The debates are open, they're transparent. We have briefings where we give them the information. That is it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I shall put that then, deemed as a matter of great urgency, where the resolution is, I can't read that. That the request that the administration organise a briefing for councillors with the New South Wales Fire and Rescue and the Fire Brigade Union be declared as urgent, be declared as business of great urgency. I'm quite happy with that. Those in favour? Thank you. Any other? Councillor Coleman?
Yeah.
That was my issue. I was going to bring...
Oh, I see.
Mayor.
Councillor McAndrew?
Yeah, look, a lot of media, and we've received emails about the Mount Piper decision to bring the closure of Mount Piper Power Station forward. Now, I had to check with Mr Muir today and some other people. My understanding is that when we were first told about the life of Mount Piper, it was 2045, 46. Now it's gone to 42, and now it's gone to 40, and there's no sure that that's even going to be the date. It could even come further, closer than that. I'm concerned about what information we're getting from Energy Australia regarding it. We've already seen the closure of the Wallerawang Power Station, and our last remaining power station. I can't say how important that is to our community, both for employment reasons and others. And I note as well, and yourself and the General Manager, Mayor, spoke to Mount Piper representatives recently, and there's going to be no rail unloader. So that concerns me as well, as it all being set down to try and bring the closure of Mount Piper closer and closer. For me personally, I remember being interviewed by the ABC where it was put to me that they were hearing rumours that the closure of Mount Piper was going to become earlier. You'd recall, Mayor, you were at the same meeting when I asked the question about that and was told no, there's no truth in that. Well, it seems there is truth in that. And we've now gone, as recently now, to 2040, and it keeps coming, seems to be coming closer and closer. So I raise it as a matter of urgency. I don't know what else we can do other than try and request a further meeting or briefing from Mount Piper to all councillors to get some clear idea of what's happening.
Councillor, I take on board what you're saying, but I can't deem it as urgent because we've still got 20 years to run as far as they're concerned. But I will ask the General Manager to get a meeting as soon as possible with Energy Australia so as we can get some clarification of where they are. A meeting for all councillors, yes. Mr General Manager, thank you.
Mayor, I don't know if you deem this urgent. Soon we're coming out of lockdown, coming into Christmas. I want to know what we're doing as a council in relation to tourism coming into the Christmas period. I don't see anything out there in the public that I can see in relation to tourism coming out, and what are the strategies are we dealing with?
The strategies that we're dealing with at the moment is that we don't know. That's I know that the roadmap says that we will be coming out, but you've only got to see what's happened in Singapore. And they were coming out too. They were 80% vaxxed, and now they've got more COVID cases than they ever had. So we don't know exactly what's around the corner, but I'll certainly speak to Mr Muir about some strategies if we can coming up to Christmas. But we're not coming. We're virtually not coming out until.
Yeah, we
until
just
November.
can't leave it. We just can't leave it until Christmas to start looking at that time.
20,000 polling places.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, we've got to get through an election of councillors first, and that's going to bring a lot of people together. Don't know what will happen. So I understand where you're coming from, councillor, but at the moment I think we're looking at an unknown.